It all started when my father left. He just got up after dinner and left without explaining anything to his wife or children. This act of her father left an indelible mark on the soul of the little girl Emily forever. And Emily was 14 years old at the time, and her younger brother was only 2 years old. Jennifer was left alone with 2 children. Her youngest son was growing up a sickly boy, which made it impossible for the woman to go to work. Not only was she left alone with 2 children without the ability to work, but also with her husband's debts and loans that he had taken out in her name. Jennifer herself became sick more often on the background of stress and, unable to cope with the load, sold the apartment to pay off all the debts. And herself and her children moved into an old house, which she inherited from her late parents. The house stood on the outskirts of the city. The condition of the house could be considered an emergency, and when the woman realized that she could not cope with the repairs on her own, she decided to ask the department for help. It was there that she met Michael, who was dealing with legal issues. After the man lost his family in an accident, he did not enter into any more long-term relationships, but he took Jennifer's story to heart and immediately began helping the woman. That this fragile woman causes him not only compassion and pity, but also sympathy, Michael admitted to himself not immediately. Jennifer, after the betrayal of her husband, did not want to let men into her life. The welfare of children and home improvement occupied all her thoughts and time. When the repairs were made not without the help of Michael, Jennifer exhaled and allowed the courtship of a man, but carefully concealed it from the children. Michael did not hurry her in anything, trying to shut her out of all problems. But a series of negative events caught up with her. The last years have severely undermined her health. The man tried to do everything possible to help Jennifer to get out, but all his attempts never succeeded. After the funeral, Michael left town, and Emily and her little brother were taken in by an aunt. Till her 18th birthday. The aunt's husband, Jack, was against the fact that the children lived with them and treated them very roughly. The girl dreamed of soon taking a brother and leaving from here, but tolerated all the abuse and orders of her aunt's husband in order not to get into an orphanage, from where to take her brother, as she was told, would be very difficult. Jack liked to drink and forced Emily to do all the household chores while his children made a mess, at the same time insulting the girl and her brother in every possible way. All these 2 years, the girl listened to what they are absent-minded and how they all interfere with life. The betrayal of her father and the rude attitude of her aunt's husband grew more and more complexes in the girl. To Emily, since her school years experienced difficulties in communicating with boys, to when all her classmates were already in full swing meeting with guys, Emily returned home alone. But the girl dreamed of only one thing, to move with her brother to his new home and no longer hear claims and humiliation from Aunt Sarah and her husband. So when that day came, Emily asked her friends to come and help her, and after packing her things and her brother's things, she left. The closest person to Emily was her brother Ethan, and after that, childhood friends Olivia and Abby. The girls had been friends since high school, and despite the fact that they were completely different, they were strong friends. Olivia always attracted the attention of others with her beauty. Her long hair shining like golden sunbeams and flawless makeup made her a real queen. In the eyes of many, she knew how to be charming, not shy about her appearance. However, despite all her attractiveness, Olivia often left the impression of frivolous. She could spend hours discussing the latest fashion trends, but she preferred to keep silent about deeper topics, such as literature or science. What's the point, she thought, believing that a smile and a good mood were more important than anything else. Emily, on the other hand, was quiet and humble because of all the events in her life. She had to grow up early and make serious decisions. She was considered by everyone to be smart beyond her years, but she never sought to stand out. So Emily preferred solitude, books, quiet evenings with a cup of tea. She was attentive, always ready to help and give advice. She kept her thoughts to herself, but when she spoke, her words were full of meaning and depth. Abby, on the other hand, was the one who always took the initiative. She was the one who made the decisions, and her friends often relied on her authority. Abby was confident, driven, and passionate, She knew what she wanted, and she knew how to lead. Her energy inspired Olivia and Emily, and they often followed her, trusting her intuition. Abby had a way of finding common ground with everyone. Her charisma attracted people like a magnet. Not surprisingly, Abby was the first to enter into a serious relationship that was heading toward marriage. Olivia, on the other hand, didn't want to think about marriage or serious relationships. She liked to make new acquaintances, flirt and accept gifts that began to add some different suitors. Only Emily, immersed in her own worries and problems, was alone. All attempts of her friends to introduce Emily to young men failed. That night, Emily was invited to the birthday party of Steve, Abby's fiancé. By that time, the girl had already managed to settle down in the house with her brother and find a job to take a break after a hard month of independent life. Emily happily agreed to go to the celebration. She asked a neighbor to babysit her 6-year-old brother until she returned. The woman was friends with Jennifer and offered to seek her help herself. "Linda, if it's not too much trouble, could you babysit Ethan today? I've been invited to a birthday party. I can't refuse. He's an independent boy, but I'm still afraid to leave him alone. He knows you well, and it would be so safe for me and him. I've got dinner ready. You can just sit in front of the TV." "Ethan will be busy with the designer," Emily asked her roommate politely. "I can, of course." "Go on, girl, have some fun," the woman answered her affectionately. The girl thanked her neighbor and began to prepare for the evening. "Ethan, I'll need to leave tonight, and you'll stay with Aunt Linda." "Okay, dinner is in the fridge. Heat it up yourself. Make sure you wash up after yourself. Try not to bother Aunt Linda too much," Emily mumbled, not taking her eyes off the mirror, trying to put on her eye makeup carefully. "Why do you need her here? I can sit by myself." "I'm already big," the boy said. "It's not big enough to be home alone at night," the girl laughed. "All right," Ethan agreed and continued playing. Olivia arrived in the evening, and the girls went out together, alerting the neighbor. And they decided to celebrate the birthday at Steve's parents' dachshund. The cottage was not far from Emily's house. Olivia made bright makeup and dressed in a tight dress so that everyone would notice her at once. Emily looked modest against her. In addition to common acquaintances, there were a lot of strangers at the place, which was very embarrassing for the girl. Having congratulated the birthday boy, Emily sat down at the table and looked at the dancers. Olivia had already had time to get acquainted with the new guy and was flirting with him. At one point, a guy came over to Emily and sat down across from her and made small talk with her. "Why are we sitting around, bored? You want a beer?" The guy held out a bottle and introduced himself. "My name is Kevin. What's yours?" "Thanks, I don't drink," the girl replied sternly. "And tell me you don't smoke or swear," the guy said with a smirk. "I will. I don't smoke and I don't swear," Emily spoke up loudly. "Wow. Now you must be a virgin too?" Kevin laughed. "What do you think you're doing?" Emily got angry and stood up abruptly. "Kevin, leave the girl alone," intervened a guy walking by. "Well, what? I can't even offer a beer anymore." "Insulting here," Kevin grumbled and walked away, waving at the girl. "I apologize for my friend. He's always like that. I hope he didn't hurt you too badly." The guy apologized. "It's no big deal," the girl replied quickly and looked away. "I'm Sam." The boy held out his hand to her and smiled. "Emily," the girl answered shyly. "I see you miss me. If you don't mind, can I keep you company? I don't drink either. We could go for a little walk." "It's very noisy here. The music and shouting are tiring," Sam suggested. "Yes, it's really noisy here," Emily said quietly. They left the courtyard where the party was held and walked through the brightly lit streets. It was Emily's first time walking alone with a guy. She was very nervous, not knowing how to act. Sam, noticing Emily's confusion, tried to get her to talk. He started with simple questions about her music and movie preferences. The girl answered briefly, trying not to look him in the eye. Her voice sounded quiet, as if she was afraid of being overheard. Seeing that the girl was not relaxing, Sam decided to change tactics a little and began to talk about his childhood memories, about how he and Kevin and Jake used to have fun on those cottage streets in the summer. His voice sounded cheerful, and Emily smiled involuntarily. "How did you spend your time as a child?" Sam asked suddenly. "I'm really curious." Emily remembered how she and her friends had loved dressing up in her mother's outfits, secretly wearing her makeup, and how they'd had picnics where they'd each brought sweets from home. Immersed in these memories, the girl caught herself thinking that the shyness was passing, and it was becoming easier for her to communicate. The conversation became more casual. Emily laughed more and more and was no longer afraid to look the guy in the eye. When the young people were on their way back, the girl had time to talk about herself and learn all about Sam's life. "Thank you for a wonderful evening." The boy kissed the girl's hand and walked her to the gate. "Thank you. I didn't realize how much time had passed," Emily told him. "Write to me tomorrow when you wake up. Good night." Sam said goodnight to Emily and left. Emily walked into the house, going to her brother's room to make sure he was asleep, but a neighbor called out to her. "Have you seen the time, daughter?" "That wasn't our agreement," the woman said indignantly. "Linda, I'm so sorry. I really didn't know I'd be so late." "I hope Ethan didn't cause you any trouble," Emily apologized. "But you did. I have a husband and kids at home. I wanted to do a good deed to let you go out. How did I know you'd lose track of time? Or did you think I didn't have my own things to do?" Linda was angry. "Please forgive me. I'm really sorry." Emily lowered her head guiltily and didn't know what else to say. "Think of your brother. Today I stayed, I didn't leave, and the other one won't stay. And what will happen to him then? While you go out," the woman began to wail. So Emily sharply raised her head and looked at her neighbor. The word walking sounded particularly harsh to her. Tears came to her eyes, but she couldn't answer. When the woman left, Emily quietly began to cry and fell asleep, curled up on the couch. In the morning, her brother woke her up. "I was afraid you weren't coming back. Aunt Linda was very angry and said that you had disappeared," the boy confessed to her. "How could I disappear and leave you?" "What are you talking about, Ethan?" "I just got delayed, forgot about the time. I let Aunt Linda down, so she got angry," answered the girl, gently stroking her brother's head. When the boy calmed down, Emily started to prepare breakfast, forgetting about the phone and the fact that she had promised to write to her new acquaintance. And Emily, as someone on the phone, shouted her brother and brought her the phone. "Thank you, darling." And Emily immediately started flipping through the call log, but the only missed calls were from Olivia and Abby. And knowing that it would be a long conversation with Olivia, she decided to call Abby back first. "Hey, Abby, you must have called. I didn't hear. I was making Ethan breakfast. How are you guys doing? Did you get some rest? Great. And you tell me how you're doing," my friend inquired. "Fine. Why do you ask?" wondered Emily. "Yeah, Sam hasn't been away from you for a minute. We all noticed when you and him disappeared for a few hours. Well, go ahead and tell us. Olivia around here is looking forward to the details too," Abby said. Emily laughed. "Oh, that's it. None of the things you both want to hear you won't hear. We were just out for a walk, chatting. The guy's interesting, polite, well-mannered. Not like that, Kevin. Sorry. I told Steve you wouldn't like him. It's just that he was the only available guy, and we really wanted you to meet someone," Abby admitted. "The only one? Does Sam have a girlfriend?" asked Emily excitedly. Abby hesitated and after a brief pause said, "Had one. Maybe broken up now. I don't hang out with him that closely. We cross paths rarely, so I can't say anything for sure. But I'll ask Steve." The girl's mood immediately changed, and under the pretext that it was time for her to go out on business, she ended the conversation with her friend so as not to think and not to get upset about a little-known person. The girl decided to spend the whole day with her brother to entertain him, and they went together to the city center, where there was an amusement park, at the same time leaving the phone at home. Returning in the evening, Emily found missed calls and messages from Sam. In response, the girl sent a short hello. The guy immediately called her back. "Hi, where did you disappear to? I was starting to get worried. I thought I was coming to see you. Abby's already called to ask about it." "It's okay. I spent the day with my brother," the girl replied dryly. "Emily, did I hurt you in any way?" her boyfriend asked her bluntly. "No. What could you possibly hurt me with?" tried to be convincing Emily. "Why don't we go out then?" suggested Sam. "I've got a lot to do at the moment. You'll have to excuse me, I have to go." Emily bid him a quick farewell and started fiddling around the house. She wouldn't think about Sam anymore. It was the first time she had ever liked a man, and she felt almost no shyness with him. But she definitely didn't want to be one of many, so she decided to distance herself from him and try not to think about him. Soon the girl went to work. The days flew by quickly. Sam sometimes wrote to Emily, but the girl rarely answered him, showing her disinterest in communicating with him. On the weekend, the friends agreed to meet at Emily's place. The girl prepared from the morning, preparing treats and setting the table, and then found something to do in the yard and played merrily with himself. Olivia brought champagne, thinking that the accumulated topics to discuss over a cup of tea would be too boring. "Girls, I think I'm in love," began Olivia, describing the new young man with admiration. "Olivia, this is the second time we've heard this. This guy is a womanizer. Steve told you right away," interrupted her friend Abby. "Why are all Steve's friends like that?" interjected Emily. "You mean Sam," Steve said. "He's kind of one and he was really interested in you. Ask why you didn't want to hang out with him. If you liked him, I can find out more." Abby stared at her friend, trying to understand her feelings. "You don't need to find out anything. He's not a bad guy, but I'm not interested in a relationship at all right now." Emily cut Emily off. "Emily, will you ever care about a relationship? In your early 30s, snapped Olivia. "Olivia," Emily's looking out. Abby nudged her friend in the side. "And how much looking out can you do? She's 18, and she's just out for a walk with a guy. At her age, it's about time," joked Olivia. "I should take your example of falling in love at every party," Abby snickered. "Well, you can stay a girl until you're old. What's it to me? I'll enjoy being young. When if not now," took offense at the girl. "But girls, come on, we're all different." "That's all right." Emily tried to defuse the situation. The friends quickly changed the subject and continued to sit, cheerfully discussing something. As the girls left, Olivia could tell that she wasn't quite sober. The girls said goodbye to Ethan, who had been in the yard the whole time, and left. Linda watched the scene. Emily, immediately noticing the neighbor, politely greeted her. The woman shook her head, showing her displeasure. "Linda, is something wrong?" the girl asked, seeing the stern face of the neighbor. "All day long the child in the heat is wandering around the yard, and you and your girlfriends are drinking. Well, your mother should see all this, and as soon as you started resenting the people closest to you, they were right to keep you strict. I can't imagine what's going to happen next." Linda was outraged. "I have apologized to you many times for being late that day. You can be sure I won't be coming back to you again," Emily said. "You're so shameless. Instead of thinking about your behavior and taking care of your little brother, you sass a grown woman," Linda said angrily. "I'll think about it," Emily exclaimed, and went home after picking up her brother. "Why is Linda yelling at you?" asked the frightened boy. "Apparently she got up on the wrong side of the bed. Don't mind her. Are you going to eat?" the girl asked. "I will," joyfully answered Ethan. "Well then, go wash your hands and sit down at the table," Emily offered with a smile, and began to put it on his plate. But when her brother fell asleep, the girl thought about it, partly feeling guilty, remembering the words of the neighbor. She had always been known for her exemplary behavior. After much thought, the girl forced herself to sleep because she had to get up early in the morning. It was becoming more and more difficult for her to combine her studies and work. The private house also required constant care and took a lot of energy. Sometimes Ethan came home from daycare by himself because Emily could not keep up with him. And the thought that next year he would have to go to school and pick him up even earlier terrified her. She couldn't imagine how she would cope with it all. Abby arrived at Emily's work one day, and the girls went outside with her. They were met by Steve and Sam. "When did you set this up on purpose?" Emily was angry when she saw the guy. "He really wanted to see you, so I let them come together. Don't be mad, please," Abby was honest. Sam was the first to approach the girls and smiled. He said hello to them. "Hi," the girl replied dryly. "Guys, let's take a little walk," Steve suggested and winked at Abby. "Yes, the weather is great. I don't feel like going home at all," Abby seconded. "I'm sorry, but I have to pick up my brother from daycare." "I'm in a hurry," Emily was about to leave, but Sam grabbed her arm to hold her back. "We'll drive you to daycare. You'll make it." "Let's walk," the boy said a little quietly. Abby and Steve stepped away at once, giving them some privacy. Emily agreed and took a slow step ahead of Sam. "I can see you're avoiding me. I only wish I could understand the reason why you're doing that. I really liked you. I'm going to my dad's for work the other day. I wanted to see you before I left and see what's going on." He looked at Emily without taking his eyes off her. "It's not about you. It's just that I'm not really in a relationship right now. Work, school, my brother, the house. Too many responsibilities," Emily said, avoiding his gaze. "Emily, if that's all it is, I'll help you. Let's at least try," Sam suggested. The girl was embarrassed and, looking at her watch, quietly replied, "I have to go." "Let's go to the car. I'll give you a ride." The guy said goodbye to his friends and took Emily and drove away. They picked up Ethan from the daycare center and drove home. The guy immediately attracted the boy, who was very much in need of male attention. At the gate, Sam kissed Emily on the cheek and drove away. They texted all night, getting to know each other better and better. In the evening, Sam drove to work to pick up Emily, and after picking Ethan up from the garden, they returned home. After dinner, Ethan sat down at the tablet that Sam had brought him, and the young men went out for a walk. The boy really wanted to spend time alone. Before they left, they went far away from the apartment buildings, where there were abandoned cottages, and there they kissed for the first time. It seemed to Emily that only half an hour had passed. The time alone with Sam flew by. After saying goodbye to her boyfriend at the doorstep, Emily walked home elated, and when she saw her neighbor on the doorstep, she froze. "This isn't how it works. You're not coping at all," the woman declared. "So what am I not coping with?" asked the girl. "It's nighttime and the baby's alone, and the door isn't even locked. What if an outsider came in?" shouted Linda. "So I only stepped away for half an hour," said Emily, excusing herself, "and saw you what time I left and what time I came in. Have a conscience, don't lie. Ethan, come with me." The woman grabbed the boy's arm and literally dragged him behind her. "Linda, are you out of your mind? Where are you dragging him? Let go." Emily picked up her brother. Ethan was scared, crying. "Ethan, you don't cry. Your sister just wanted her freedom. Let her go out as much as she wants, and you will go to live with us. At least we'll have someone to sit with you. And then the court will decide how to proceed," the woman said. "What court? He has me, and he will live with me. Now leave our house and don't come here again," demanded Emily, and pointed to the neighbor at the door. "What an insolent wench. I'll go," Linda wailed as she left the house. Emily could hardly calm her brother, put him to bed, but she herself was shivering and could not come to her senses. And only before going to bed, taking her phone in her hands and opening the message from Sam, I seemed to be falling in love. The girl smiled and forgot about everything in the world. Morning came. Emily took her brother to daycare and headed to work. From the garden, she got a call to come right away. The girl went to the garden in horror, thinking that Ethan was sick. But it turned out they came from the guardianship authorities to inquire about who and how the boy lives with. Emily immediately guessed on whose tip they had come. Emily, can you please tell me how often you leave Ethan alone? The caretaker said that you are one of the last ones to pick up the boy, and sometimes he goes home by himself. Is that true? The woman inquired, pulling down her glasses and looking back and forth at the girl and her brother. I understand it was Linda who notified you. Yeah, sometimes I don't have time. And a couple times he had to walk home by himself. But Ethan is a smart boy and knows the way well. After my mom died, we have no one left and I have to combine both school and work, the girl answered boldly. I would praise you now, but your neighbor says that you find time for a young man, and it is you who run out to meet him, leaving a small child alone. They were able to get into your house yesterday without obstruction. Where was Ethan alone? What do you say to that? The woman asked sternly. I went out yesterday to say goodbye to my boyfriend since he's leaving for a week. I timed it a little wrong, got held up. Ethan knows Linda well. He wouldn't have opened the door for anyone else, Emily replied confidently. Once again, the door was open. The boy didn't open it for anyone else, the woman exclaimed. I have the best sister and I want to live with her, Ethan replied. Dad, the boy shouted and clung to Emily. Everyone in the room at that time was dumbfounded, and after asking a few questions to the caretakers, they left. Emily picked up Ethan and headed home. She had just left the garden when she was called out by a girl who was next to the woman from child care who was writing something down. Emily, wait a minute. I can see how much you care about your brother. So what? Someone's trying to hurt you. Maybe you interfered with this neighbor in some way. I don't know, but you need to be on your guard. You've already been labeled as a dysfunctional family, and there will be frequent inspections. Be careful. They can show up at any time. The most important thing is not to let him be taken to an orphanage. It will be very difficult to get him back. Yes, the girl said. Well, what orphanage? What did I do? Is that legal? Emily was visibly nervous. But you either interfered a lot with someone, or maybe they want your house, the boys share. Anything could be possible. You can't trust anyone right now. I just wanted to warn you to be more careful, but I must go now. The girl quickly disappeared behind the houses. The next day, the inspection came to their house. Seeing the house in full order, the presence of food, the child's own area, the woman began to demand documents indicating the share of the boy. Emily refused to show any documents before talking to a lawyer. The woman from the inspection threatened that this kind of behavior would only have a negative impact. She escorted the men out and made her own way with Ethan to the department, where she unexpectedly ran into Michael herself. Emily, how have you grown? The man lifted the boy into his arms. A tear welled up in his eyes. And I thought you'd left then. That's what they told me, at least, the girl barely audibly uttered. Returned a little while ago. Come into my office, if you're not in a hurry. The man walked confidently forward and, opening the office door, invited her in. Emily explained the whole situation and asked for help. Michael, I'm hoping you can tell me the right way to behave and why Aunt Linda is setting this whole thing up. I'm puzzled, does she really care that much about Ethan? This is your neighbor, does she know Sarah? The man asked sharply. Yes, what does Aunt Sarah have to do with it? The girl wondered. Michael motioned for a young girl to come in and asked her to keep Ethan occupied while they talked. Emily, you're a grown-up girl. I think even back then you guessed I was with your mom. Jennifer was a beautiful, pure person and I wanted a serious relationship. But she was afraid because Sarah was turning her against me. I helped Jennifer buy out my sister's share, but she couldn't get enough. After she moved out, she also kept bad-mouthing me for trying to cheat her, to take the house. And she made these attempts to reclaim her share of the house by forging documents. That's why she took you. She was counting on the house. Her husband is a slippery type, too. So it's quite possible your neighbor is in cahoots with her. Sighing heavily, Michael finished. Yeah, she's often said that Mom is naive and believes you, and you want to lease all with us all without a home. Emily hesitated. Emily, well, do you really think I'm such a self-serving person? And what do I need a house for if I don't have a family or children? I have a place to live. I just wanted a family. I did what I could. Jennifer, I'll help you too. I don't want anything in return. It was clear from the look in his eyes and the timbre of his voice that Michael was speaking sincerely. Michael, you don't need to prove yourself to me. I believe you, just like Mom did. That you wouldn't have left so soon. I think things would have worked out for you. Now I can't lose my brother, and I hope you'll help me, Emily asked. We'll work it out. You don't have to worry. So after walking Emily and Ethan home, Michael took up their issue. After tracing Linda, it turned out that the woman was Jack's mistress. The man decided to get a house through a neighbor, since he couldn't get his wife to Duduosnai. At the next meeting on the territory of abandoned houses, Emily and Michael snuck lovers by surprise. In return for their silence, Emily demanded that she and her brother get away from them. The girl did not need to ruin two families at once. With the custody issue resolved, Emily exhaled and thanked Michael for his help. Thank you so much. I don't know how I would have done it without you. You can come to me anytime. Daughter, I'll do my best. The man smiled and gave the girl a fatherly hug goodbye. Emily exhaled for the first time in recent days and began to prepare for the exams. The girl had forgotten about Sam and, having remembered, she called him immediately. The guy didn't answer right away. His voice was depressed. Are you all right there? Emily worried. Yeah, everything's fine. How are you? How's Ethan? Her boyfriend asked her in an even tone. And I'm fine. Emily fell silent, trying to listen to see if he was alone. Okay, I've got stuff to do. I'll let you know when I get there. Sam hurriedly said goodbye and hung up. After that conversation, the girl felt a little uneasy. To clear her doubts, she called Abby. Abby, did Steve tell you anything about Sam? Like who he went to? He told me he was going to his father's. At first he called and wrote, but then he started disappearing. Said he'd be gone for a week, and already the second week is coming to an end. I called him today. He answered very dryly, and somehow ended the conversation quickly. If you know anything, please tell me if he's gone to his girlfriend, and I'm calling like a fool, waiting. Emily paced around the room, feeling very nervous. Emily, I don't know if it's right that I'm telling you about this. I overheard the conversation with Steve myself by accident. Sam's father went to jail. I don't know the details. I'll let him tell you when he gets here. I only told you that so you wouldn't get all worked up. Just don't tell him you know everything from me, Abby asked. What a horror. Of course, honey, don't worry about it. Okay, I'm sorry to bother you. How are you doing? The girl asked. We're doing fine. Thinking seriously about getting married. Here we are waiting for Steve's vacation and we'll start preparing, shared the girlfriend. How great. Well done. Let's party so we'll be at the wedding soon, rejoiced Emily. The girls immediately changed the subject, discussing the wedding dress and other details of preparation. A few days passed. Sam returned, but didn't arrive at Emily's house until the next day. And the boy was in a panic and told her that his father was imprisoned, according to him, unfairly. But Emily knew from Abby that his father was doing something illegal. The girl decided to keep silent about it, trying to support the guy in every possible way. Emily even wanted to ask Michael for help. But having learned that the man is preparing for the wedding, did not bother him about his problems. After the court, where the decision was not in favor of Sam's father, the guy completely drooped. Emily tried to be close to him, not burdening him with her worries. They saw each other less and less. The guy explained it by the fact that his mother was having a hard time, and he needed to be near her. And when Emily decided that this was the best reason to get to know her, and invited the two of them to visit. "You need a distraction. There's fresh air here too. We can roast kebabs in the yard." "I'll be very happy to see you," suggested the girl. "Perhaps you are right. I'll make an offer." "And if she agrees, we'll come this weekend," the guy answered her without much enthusiasm. Emily was persistent, and for the weekend they did agree. Amanda, having arrived at Emily's place, was surprised how the girl alone copes with such a large territory. She walked around the yard and garden and shared her advice on how best to set things up. "You are, of course, a great good girl. Everywhere is clean and neat, but you can see that there is a lack of a man's hand," the woman muttered, alluding to her son. "So soon Ethan will be old enough to help me with everything," Emily said cheerfully. "So what about Sam? Call him more often. Let him help," Amanda suggested. "But he's got a lot on his plate. A friend's wedding is coming up soon," Emily shared the news. "Who's getting married?" the woman wondered. "It's Steve and Abby. They've been talking about getting married for a while now. It seems this summer they will already get married," the girl revealed. "That's the news. You hear that, Sam? Did your friend beat you to it?" The woman looked at her son, but he only nodded his head without taking his eyes off the phone. After dinner, Sam promised to take his mom home and come back, but he never came back. The boy came home late at night. The woman did not bother her son with conversations, decided to wait until morning. "Son, you tell me, is this whole area owned only by Emily?" the mother inquired. "My brother seems to be in on it, too. They've been dealing with the aunt there." "Why?" the boy asked her in surprise. "Yeah, I was just thinking, it's such a huge area. We could all fit in there, and we could rent this apartment out. Till your father gets out, there's no money. The loan has to be paid off with something." The woman looked at her son questioningly. "Well, what do you suggest? I go to Emily and say, let's all live together. Is that it? Or should I ask her to let us live with her?" The guy lazily laid back on the couch and began flipping through the channels. "But why ask? You should propose to her. Didn't you see her talking animatedly about her friend's wedding yesterday? Clearly wants to get married too. And wipe Steve's nose with it. That he's jealous of you, trying to get ahead of you. He's a couple years younger than you. What's the rush?" And sat down across from her son, waiting for his response to her idea. "What wedding? Mom, what are you talking about? I'm not ready for such a serious relationship, especially since I have Olivia." "I haven't made up my mind yet," Sam brushed it off. "But Olivia is a pretty girl, but she doesn't have a dowry. And you need to solve your own problems now, not take on another problem head on your own. She's got a lot of character, and Emily is naive. She'll probably sign the house over to you. You don't have to live with her all your life and put a cross on yourself. You'll live in marriage for a while the problems are solved, and then you'll see. Listen to what your mother says. I've seen life." The woman stroked her son's head, pleased with her idea. Sam thought about it, but in the morning went again to Marina and spent the whole day with her. In the evening he went to Steve's, and after making sure they were really planning a wedding, he drove over to Emily's in the summer. I stopped by Steve's place, and all he's talking about is the wedding, so I started thinking about it myself. "Would you agree to marry me?" Sam suddenly asked. The girl, hearing this, was taken aback. "Are you proposing to me now?" Emily asked, confused. "Well, would you marry me?" the boy interjected. "But I think the strongest marriages are with those who married their first love," replied the girl timidly. "And I'm your first love, Sam asked with a smile. You're first in every way. You know that. The girl blushed visibly. Sam stepped closer to her and hugged the girl and whispered, well, then you can get ready for the wedding too. Emily's eyes shone and she clung tighter to her lover's chest. They did not delay the wedding. They quickly applied to the registry office and already set the date of the wedding. No one planned lavish celebrations. They only set the tables right in the yard of Emily's house and invited the closest friends. As Sam listened to his mother and hurried not only to get married quickly and move in with his girlfriend, but also to get ahead of his friend with the date. But Steve clearly didn't like this news. The guys had been competing with each other for a long time. No one could remember where it all started. But the day of the wedding had arrived. Abby and Olivia were bridesmaids, and after the ceremony at the registry office, everyone came to Emily's house. Amanda was the one who was most excited, constantly yelling bitter and making toasts. Emily felt the happiest, and the smile never left her face. But at some point, all the guests' eyes were drawn to the gate, and in front of them stood a girl in a gorgeous red dress. It was Marina. She walked right up to the bride and groom's table and tried to kiss Sam, but the guy pushed her away. Then the girl turned to the guests and said, just yesterday Sam was warming my bed and today he's marrying someone else. That's how quickly things change in life. Take a good look at your soulmates. Have a good evening, everybody. And the girl threw a small box on the table on which was written wedding present and left. Marina was known to almost everyone who attended this wedding, except the bride herself. But everyone was silent. Emily looked at the groom. Her eyes were full of tears. I'll explain it all to you later. This is my ex-girlfriend. We broke up a long time ago. How did she find out about the wedding? I'll find out, but let's not do it in front of the guests right now, Sam asked. Emily silently got up from the table and headed towards the house. Her friends followed her as well. Do you know her, Abby? How long? Please don't lie. Emily spoke through her tears. This is the first time I've seen her. I told you back in the beginning that he had a lot of girlfriends. It's probably just an ex he dumped. You need to talk to him. Don't jump to conclusions. Yes, all of this is unpleasant, but be patient, Abby pleaded. Olivia stood by the window and sipped one glass of champagne after another. This is why I'm not getting married. I'd rather keep screwing around with men until I'm old, she gibbered. Olivia, easy, Abby yelled. At that moment, Amanda walked in and asked the girls to leave her alone with her fiancé. After waiting for the girls to come out, the woman sat down next to Emily and began to speak. I realize that she has marred such an important day for you, but let this be the first and last bad thing in your life. That girl has drank quite a bit of blood from my son. How many conversations have I had with her to get her to leave Sam alone? It's been over a year since they broke up and she still can't seem to calm down. I tell Sam not to trust this Steve guy. I mean, he's the only one who could have told her about the wedding, and he naively calls him a friend. My girl, please don't be so hard on yourself. Sam loves you very much and cherishes you, talks about you all the time. I will be very hurt if this girl upsets his wedding too, the woman said. And are you saying Steve is the one who called her here? Emily asked in surprise. Maybe he didn't call her, but no one could have told her but him. I mean, that's how she knew about the wedding and where it was going to take place, the woman mumbled, avoiding the stare. Okay, we'll figure it out. I'll go out to the guests, the girl replied quietly and began to adjust her dress and veil. Amanda immediately stood up and began to help her sister-in-law, saying, That's right, you're a smart, sensible girl. You won't jump to conclusions. Emily, having corrected her makeup, went out into the yard. Everyone immediately fell silent, staring intently at the bride. Sam cautiously approached his bride and whispered in her ear, So, everything okay? Yes, the girl replied briefly, but she didn't feel like smiling and looking into her lover's eyes. Abby, realizing the situation, began to call everyone to go home. The guests dispersed, and Amanda offered Ethan to go with her to go to the children's club in the morning, thus giving the newlyweds some privacy. And the boy was delighted at the suggestion and immediately agreed. So left alone with Emily, Sam immediately began to justify himself. I feel guilty about ruining our day, even though it wasn't my fault, except for the fact that I used to date Marina. So Marina, and how did she manage to find out where I live? The girl inquired. I have no idea. She and I broke up a long time ago, but she keeps a constant eye on my life. Lately, because of my daddy issues, I've stopped thinking about noticing her. Maybe I missed something. I apologize to you for that, the boy mumbled guiltily. And your mom says Steve might have told her. Aren't you two friends? Is there something I don't know about? Emily looked sharply at Sam, trying to determine from the look in his eyes if he was lying. Maybe there have been many moments where he's let down. Sam took on a thoughtful look. Didn't the rush to get married have something to do with you wanting to get ahead of him? The girl asked suddenly. And you what? Why would I want to do that? What am I, 12 years old? You know me, if I want something, I won't procrastinate for months like Steve, the boy objected. Though Emily smiled, noticing how emotional he was reacting to Steve. Their first week of married life together had gone up smoothly. The fact that Sam would live at Emily's house had been agreed upon at once, just as the mother-in-law had planned, but she had plans to move in with them herself. But she didn't want to rush into it, so as not to scare her daughter-in-law away. The woman cunningly located the girl's brother, often took him to her. Emily and Sam more often spent time together as a couple, while there were vacations and vacations. The newlyweds enjoyed married life, spending time together. The only thing that marred their was the calls and messages from Marina. So the girl called not only Sam, but also Emily sent their joint photos. Every time the girl brought up her wedding gift, Sam distracted her. Emily never saw what was in the box. The gift disappeared on the day of the wedding. Emily really wanted to meet Steve and talk to him alone. But a month before the wedding, the guy was in the army, and the wedding was postponed indefinitely. And the girl decided not to bother the guy in such a position with his questions. September was approaching. Ethan was to go to the first grade. The boy was looking forward to this day, but Emily did not know how to combine her studies and work with her brother's school. Her mother-in-law offered to help again, saying that she would stay with them on weekdays. The woman hoped that Emily would invite her to move in, but it never happened. Patient, she decided to wait until September. And then it came. Ethan, accompanied by Emily, Sam and Amanda walked happily to the school line. The boy proudly carried a bouquet that covered his entire face. A woman was hugging the boy affectionately. Everyone assumed it was his grandmother. Amanda walked the boy to school every day and met him. She was patient, waiting for the children to call her to live with them, not to visit. After 2 weeks, the mother-in-law still couldn't stand it, and was the first to start this conversation. Emily, of course I volunteered to help you, but age is taking its toll. It's hard for me to live in 2 homes. The commute is exhausting. The apartment gets busy in 5 days, and I don't rest on weekends either. I'm even more tired and I spend more, and I have no opportunity to work now, the woman complained. Of course, I understand you and I can see how tired you are. I wanted to talk to Sam about it, but he's so late getting back that it's always too late to talk. I guess I'll have to quit my job. The girl let out a heavy sigh. Why would you have to quit? You are already struggling financially right now. Until Sam closes his loans, he has to stay late at work. It's all because of his father and the many courts. He's ruined our whole lives, and he's got us in trouble in our old age. I've been thinking, why don't I move in with you for a while and rent out our apartment? Now we need the extra money, and everyone will be easier, do you think? The mother-in-law asked cautiously. That would be great. I was embarrassed to ask you to move as well. I thought you wouldn't want to. And Amanda, thank you so much. You're helping us out so much. Emily ran up to hug her mother-in-law with joy. The woman went to pack her things that same day to move out. Within a week, tenants had already been found, but the financial situation in the house had not improved. The husband's money went to pay for loans. The mother-in-law also assured that she was paying the loan from the apartment money. The main expenses came to Emily's salary. The girl was very tired of living like this. Her husband came home very late and practically stopped paying attention to her. His mother-in-law more and more often allowed herself to make remarks, to behave at home as a full-fledged mistress. Emily had no one to share it with. Olivia went on vacation with another suitor, and Abby took care of Steve. On the way home, coming back from school, the girl called her friend to inquire about Steve's health and to take her mind off her problems. The friend's voice was tired, and the girl offered to meet her. Already an hour later, they met outside the school cafe, which used to be the canteen, and where they often ran in after school. "What do the doctors say? Is your leg healing?" Emily asked. "Yeah, he's been walking on his own for a while now. He just gets cranky a lot. And anyway, I think he enjoyed being sick. No need to work, no need to get married either," the girl mumbled wistfully. "Oh, come on, Steve loves you madly," Emily hastened to console her friend. "Once upon a time, maybe he did. We've long since grown cold to each other. We don't have that passion anymore. That's why we decided it was time to take it to the next level, the family level. But I don't think he's ready, and now he realizes it," Abby admitted. "And you know I haven't found anything good in marriage, so you're not losing anything. Sam and I have only gotten worse, and my mother-in-law is living with us now. I thought it would get better, but it's gotten worse. She has her own rules everywhere, so I don't even want to go back to my house. Sam only comes home to sleep. No talking to him, no sitting around like he used to. He's irritable. We're the ones who rushed the wedding." Emily fell silent, trying to hold back tears. "Why did she move in with you? Doesn't she have a home?" Abby wondered. "She rented an apartment, said she'd help us out financially. But I haven't seen any money from them, and I still don't." Emily opened up. "So much for that. Why do you put up with this? The loans, the debts, that's their problem that should have absolutely nothing to do with you. Living at your place at your own expense. How insolent. Once they get used to it, you can't kick them out. Now tell them you've been fired or your salary has been cut. You don't have to feed them," Abby got angry and urged her friend that it was wrong. The girl returned home much later than usual. Her mother-in-law met her with a displeased face. "Good evening. Where's Ethan?" Smiling, the girl asked. "Have you looked at the time? Sleeping, of course, the child," muttered the woman. "And Sam isn't there either?" inquired Emily, as if not noticing her mother-in-law's indignation. If wives came home on time, husbands would be anxious to get home too. Amanda snickered and defiantly retreated to her room. Emily decided to wait for her husband in the hall, flipping through the channels where she couldn't find anything interesting. So this made the girl even more nervous, who was already on edge. But after talking to her friend and her mother-in-law's behavior, Sam came back late and was surprised to see that his wife was still awake. "Are you awake?" he asked her unhappily. "Waiting for you. Are you going to eat?" Emily asked. "No, thanks. I ate on the way. Shall we go to bed?" Sam muttered lazily. "I wanted to spend some time alone together," the girl visibly upset. "Emily, I'm really tired. Let's do it another time." The boy strode straight into the bedroom. Emily jumped up abruptly, heading after him. "When's another time? You're either not here or your mom is around. It's only been a couple months since we got married, and I don't even see my husband." The girl was indignant. "Do you have something against my mom?" "Getting fed up so quickly." "She's here for your brother, by the way, wanting to help you," the husband objected. "Wanting to save money?" Emily shouted back at him. Sam flew into a rage and hit the girl with all his might so hard that she collapsed on the bed. "You ingrate," he shouted after her and slammed the door and left. Amanda ran out of the room, knocking on her sister-in-law's door. What's the matter with you two? Where's Sam? Ask your son yourself, shouted the girl and tearfully locked herself in the bathroom. It had been a sleepless night. Sam never came home. The next day, at Emily's request, her mother-in-law called her son and asked him to come over. When he returned, the woman picked Ethan up and went out for a walk with him. And so here goes. For hitting you, I apologize, but I won't allow you to insult my mom anymore. She's here solely for you and Ethan. And to hear you say that is just insolent of you, Sam spoke up. I smelled a woman's perfume on you. That's why I got angry, the girl replied quietly, not making excuses. What perfume? Do you hear yourself? The guy got even more angry. You're always out all the time, and here you come back late, and you smell like a woman's perfume too. What else could I think? I miss you. I want to spend more time together. You can understand me too, Emily cried. Just please, let's no tears. You knew perfectly well that I got into loans because of my father, and it's up to me to pay them off. Instead of support, I have to listen to more of your whims. I'm at work from morning till night. When I come home tired, I want understanding and care, not to listen to unfounded claims from my wife. Sam sat down on the couch and turned on the TV, showing that he did not intend to continue the discussion. So you're the one asking me to leave you alone so you can sleep. It's not like I'm asking you for anything but attention. Emily went into the kitchen and started cooking to somehow calm herself down, seeing that her husband was pretending as if he couldn't hear her. A couple of days later, Emily broke the news over dinner that she had been transferred to another department where she would be paid much less. Amanda was the most outraged, worried that they would be short of money. The annoyed woman, citing her blood pressure, went to the hospital as if despite her sister-in-law causing her even more trouble. The woman refused to eat hospital food, and Emily had to drive to the hospital in the morning and evening. Sam rarely stopped by, but more often it was Emily who had to do it. By stopping by the hospital before the university in the morning, the girl warmed up breakfast and waited until her mother-in-law had eaten to pick up the dishes. Emily, would you mind stopping by the tenants today to pick up their payment? Just don't tell Sam. Okay, I'll be discharged tomorrow. But the doctor said I need to rest for another week, the woman asked. Emily agreed, and skipping classes went to fulfill her request, while the girl waited in the narrow hallway and looked for receipts. Among the stack, she noticed the very box that Marina had thrown on their table on their wedding day. Oh, and I've been looking for this gift for so long. Do you mind if I pick it up? Emily asked politely. Take it, of course, it's yours. There's a shelf with all your stuff on it. If you need anything, look, replied the nice girl. Emily didn't look for a long time, took the family album and the box and left. When she arrived at work, the girl found a secluded spot and frantically began to open the box. In it were several flash drives and a lot of photos with Marina, where they kiss and walk nicely. Emily had already seen half of them, since Marina sent periodic messages. But when she saw the picture of Sam and Abby kissing at the bottom, Emily couldn't take her eyes off the stack. There were a few more pictures of different girls lying around, but Emily didn't care about them. The girl chaotically gathered everything back into the box, put the thumb drives in her pocket, and quickly flipped through the album. Judging by the joint photos in Marina and Amanda's album, it was clear that the girl was a member of the family. Emily threw it all in her bag and walked out of work, called Abby to see where she was, and hearing that she was in the hospital, she drove straight there. When she arrived, the girl stood for a couple minutes at the entrance and, taking a deep breath, went up to Steve's room. The guy was lying alone. Hi, where's Abby? Emily asked. What people? Hi. Abby went out to talk to the doctor. She'll be back, and you come on in. How are things going with you guys? Tell me. Steve lifted himself off the bed, sitting down comfortably. That's better then. I think you'll answer me more honestly. The girl handed him a picture of Abby with Sam. The boy's facial expression immediately changed. He looked at Emily and said with a heavy sigh, "That was a long time ago, before you and me." I figured from the date that it's been a long time since they dated. Why was that kept from me? And you're the one who told Marina about us, to avenge Abby, Emily shouted. Who's avenging who? Back at the beginning of your relationship, I told Abby to warn you who Sam was. I don't know why she let things get this far. They met at some party. They dated briefly, never got serious. I liked Abby the first time I saw her. If she'd been with someone else, I wouldn't have taken her. But I knew Sam had a few girls at that point. If Kevin's a douchebag who's an openly gay guy, Sam's a real alpha. He was always taking advantage of girls, and knowing that, I stole Abby. He didn't need her, but the fact that one of his girls was taken got to him. And I'm not surprised he got married despite me. And about Marina, she knew about everyone and she accepts him. They never broke off their relationship. Well, I don't understand why Sam let her openly come to the wedding. The guy looked sharply at the door as Abby walked in. Emily, hi. Abby went over to hug Emily's friend, handed the girl a picture, and silently walked out of the room. Leave her alone. You should have told me earlier. It's too late now. When she calms down, then you can talk, Steve said sternly. Emily ran home in tears, forgetting that she had to take the money to the hospital. Sam, who came home late, found his wife crying. What's wrong with you? Did someone die? He asked carelessly. I know all about you and Marina, the girl said faintly. There you go again with your Marina. Listen to her more. Sam got angry. I went to visit Steve. He told me, replied Emily calmly. Well, what did he tell you? Shouted the boy. That you're lovers, and she found out about the wedding from you. Emily exhaled, walking over to the window. She couldn't get enough air. So this is it. I'm telling you for the last time. Everything I told you is true. I wasn't in a relationship with her when we started dating. And if you hadn't greeted me from work with a sour face and been a friendly wife, I wouldn't be looking for understanding on the side. I'm tired at work and still comfort at home. And you're only a blowout of the brain. Who needs that? Sam slammed the door and left once again. Emily, left alone, was torn. After she calmed down, she called Olivia. The girl immediately agreed to come over. Or did you know Abby and Sam are dating too? Emily asked directly. Oh, please. But walked around a couple times holding hands, that's all. Olivia opened a bottle of champagne and began pouring it into glasses. Why didn't you say anything to me? Emily struggled to hold back tears. So they told you right away that he was a womanizer. Don't make a tragedy of it. She's suffering out there. You found someone to cry over. Look at Sam. What does he give you? Tears in his mom's presence. Sam +1. And you're going to cry for him. Let him go back to wherever he came from with his mom. Divorce isn't the end of life. Abby didn't lie to you about anything. She just left out a little detail so you wouldn't get any ideas about them. You're not communicating with her. You're continuing to live with the man who lies to you and makes you cry. Turn your head on, Emily. Olivia handed her a glass. Emily drank to the bottom and said, I'll think about it. After finishing the bottle, Olivia left and Emily went to bed. In the morning, Sam dropped off his mother and left without even saying hello to his wife. The kitchen was untidy. There was a bottle of champagne in the trash can and 2 glasses on the table. The floor was sticky, as the girls had spilled yesterday. Toward the end of the sit-down, Emily picked up a rag and began wiping the floor. And what is this? Were we celebrating another fight with my husband? Her mother-in-law asked with a smirk. Amanda, why didn't you marry Sam to Marina? Or is she only suitable as a mistress? The girl inquired. What are you getting at? The woman wondered. I know all about Marina. Sam himself admitted yesterday that they are still seeing each other. I wish him happiness with his mistress, but let him stay away from me. Emily spoke up. Now we're talking. It's your business to scrub the floors, not talk about your husband's mistresses. If you were a normal wife, your husband wouldn't be so quick to stray, mind you. And if you talk too much, we'll kick you out of your own house, and no one will help you. Or do you think I'm just here to babysit? You're married, and all property is divided in half in a divorce," the woman said, striking a pose. Emily was stunned by her mother-in-law's insolence, and dropping the rag, left the house, ran Marina's number through the deleted calls, and arranged a meeting. Ashley immediately agreed. The girls met near the house. "The question that interests me most is, who did you hear about the wedding from? Steve or Sam?" Emily got straight to the point. "From Sam, of course. What does Steve have to do with it?" The girl wondered. "And why did he need all this? So you could come to the wedding and set it all up?" Emily inquired, gritting her teeth in anger. "He didn't need to, but I did. Yes, I knew about you. I knew he was getting married, but Amanda reassured me that they only wanted to scare you. I knew that I didn't suit her because I had nothing. But as much as I tried to keep a low profile, it's hard to sit at home knowing your lover is getting married. I wanted you to be aware and draw conclusions. And of course, to show his mother that I'm not a wimp who just forgives her son. And then, of course, I justified that it all came out of emotion, but it was planned in advance. Despite my practicality, knowing that I have nothing behind my soul, I conclude that he still has feelings for me. It's up to you to decide what you're going to do next. I'm telling you straight, I'm not leaving for nothing. I love him," Ashley admitted honestly. "I only have one favor to ask of you. Don't tell anyone that you and I saw each other after our divorce. It's good for you." Emily smiled goodbye and, wishing her husband's mistress good luck, left. So when she got home, Emily closed herself in her brother's room and fell asleep. In the morning, the girl herself took Ethan to school. Herself went to the registry office to file for divorce. So when she arrived home, she found no one, closed all the doors, and began to quickly collect the things of her husband and mother-in-law. To the same day, she invited a master and changed the locks. The bags with their belongings were put outside the gate of the house. Amanda froze when she saw such a picture and began to shout and demand that the gate be opened immediately. Linda, hearing the shouting, ran outside. "You don't live here anymore. I've collected every single thing in this house. There's nothing of yours here anymore. I'll see you in court," shouted Emily and slammed the door shut. An hour later, Sam arrived and, also threatening, demanded to open the door for him. But the girl didn't even come out. A neighbor watched the whole scene and gloated. After several days of threatening messages, there was silence. The first surprise for Emily was that her husband demanded the division of property. The girl, not thinking long, decided to turn to Michael again. Arriving at his place of work, Emily was pleased to see the man blossom. "Michael, I heard you got married after all. I'm very happy for you. Really, you've gotten younger. I'd really hate to trouble you with my troubles, but I don't know who else to turn to." And Emily told him her whole story. "Daughter, don't worry, we'll sort it all out. In the meantime, be very careful. I will ask Dima to stay with you. He's my stepson. You can be sure he's a reliable guy. You'd better not stay alone right now," the man said. So Michael made a call, and a short time later, a young guy came in and said hello politely to Emily. Having been instructed by Michael, Dim drove Emily home. While the man gathered the necessary documents, Dim accompanied the girl to her studies and met her from work. Linda, having made arrangements with Amanda's wife, filmed everything on camera as Emily was already walking around with another guy. In court, the neighbor acted as a witness that Emily had a young lover and therefore demanded a divorce. But Emily had saved all of her ex-husband's messages where he threatened her, which she presented to the court. Michael confirmed that Dim is his stepson and at his request provided the girl's safety. That people who ventured into marriage for their own ends could do anything. So leaving Emily alone was simply not an option. The divorce was finalized without property division. Sam was fined for threatening and further forbade to bother the girl. Angry Amanda spat in the direction of the already former daughter-in-law, leaving the courtroom. Emily only smiled back at her. In the evening, the girl invited her friends to celebrate her divorce, where Abby made up with Emily. The girl reported that in 2 weeks their wedding with Steve will still take place. "I hope my ex-husband won't be there?" Emily asked her. "Oh, not only an ex-husband, but an ex-friend. We don't need guests like that," Abby declared. The friends laughed and continued to celebrate the already double event, the divorce that took place and the future wedding. The girls went home only in the morning. Emily slept the whole day. After waking up in the afternoon, she got up to feed her brother. In the evening, the doorbell rang. It was dim, and I forgot my tablet and my shorts I wanted to pick up, the boy said. "So you're just in time. Sit down to dinner with us. No refusals accepted. At least let me thank my best bodyguard now," Emily merrily mouthed and led the guy into the house. "I see you're in high spirits. Have you gotten over it all yet?" her boyfriend asked her with a smile. "Would there be anything to get over?" Laughing, replied the girl. The young people had a fun evening, chatting about everything in the world. Leaving, the guy invited Emily to the movies, and the girl immediately agreed. After going to the movies, they began to communicate more often, began to see each other. At the wedding, her friend Emily was not alone. She had already introduced her new boyfriend to everyone, whom she looked at with pride and admiration. For with him she felt as if behind a reliable protection. Michael, who had long considered Emily his daughter and was happy for both son and daughter, was the most happy about the union. Following Abby and Steve, Dim and Emily got married. Arriving at his ex-wife's house a year after the divorce, her husband froze upon learning of her fate. Amanda ran to the kitchen sink and splashed the coffee she had just drunk from a cup. "Catherine is messing with me again," the woman thought with anger and despair. "Stop hitting her with a belt," Amanda said out loud. She had woken up this morning in a good mood for once. It was Saturday, the whole weekend was ahead of her. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering lazily where the sun bunny had come from. She didn't immediately realize that it was a mirror lying on her bedside table, on which the rays were falling. How quiet is the house? Amanda wondered. It was 10 o'clock. John and Catherine should have been up by now. She planned to go to the mall and buy herself the pants she'd been eyeing on the store's website for a while, and pick up some clothes for her stepdaughter. Afterward, she and her husband could spend the day together. Amanda turned on her side and saw a note from her husband gone on business. Urgently summoned. But John won't know when he'll be back, she thought. Why does he have to be the one to be pulled on weekends? If the boss himself had traveled like this, he would not have sent others. Her husband was the deputy head of a large construction firm. He often personally traveled to the sites, including on weekends. This dampened Amanda's mood a little, but she tried not to give in to sadness. The woman threw a robe over her nightgown and went down to the first floor. In the kitchen, she boiled water in an electric kettle, poured ground coffee into a cup, and poured boiling water over it. John wouldn't fail to remind me that there's a coffee machine in the house, Amanda smiled. But it was nice to be able to make coffee the old-fashioned way, like when I was a student. She covered the cup with a saucer and went to the bathroom to wash up. Amanda decided to take a shower and stood under the cool jets for about 10 minutes. Then she returned to the kitchen, looked out the window and smiled at the sunny summer day that promised only good things. But it was a sip of coffee that ruined everything. Apparently, while I was in the bathroom, Catherine came into the kitchen and put something in the drink. Amanda pondered. What kind of nasty stuff did she find? Was it black pepper or Brooklyn? She had no desire to taste the liquid a second time. She emptied the cup into the sink and sighed. Her mood was hopelessly ruined. For the 6 years that Amanda had lived with John, she had tried to find common ground with Catherine, his daughter from her first marriage, but she had failed. And it all started with their very first meeting, when a man brought his then not yet wife, but the woman he loved to introduce his 9-year-old daughter. "I had one mom, and I do not need a new one," said the girl, turned around and went into the room. "Will she get used to it?" John then divorced his hands. "It's been 3 years since Mary died. She misses her. You know," Amanda said. "A child is attached to her mother, and I'm not her aunt yet." "That's all right," her husband replied. But it didn't happen. When the woman offered to go with the girl to the children's park to spend time together and get acquainted, she seemed happy at first, but then throughout the walk was terribly cranky. "I'm dizzy. I feel sick. I don't want to feed them, and I don't want to eat myself. I don't want ice cream either," she refused even her favorite treat. John and Amanda were a little confused by her behavior, so they came home and tried to have dinner together. "My stomach hurts," Catherine said, and retreated to her room. So it went on. The girl perceived the new woman of the father exclusively in the bayonet. The man, on the contrary, only dreamed of meeting a new love after several years of lonely life after the death of his wife. "So smart and beautiful," he said of Amanda. And they met in a public restroom at the train station. "It's a shame to tell this story," the woman laughed later, recalling the situation. But she was not laughing then. In February, she came from her district center to the big city, where she found a job. The bus ride took her only 2 hours, so there were no sanitary stops. By the end of the trip, Amanda had a terrible urge to go to the bathroom. She jumped out of the vehicle and almost ran to the bus station building, but ran into a closed bathroom door. The restroom was closed for repairs, the note on it said. The nearest one was in the train station building. "What the hell is this?" the woman exclaimed in frustration. But there was no way out, and she hurried toward the train station, which was nearby. To get there, she had to pass through a small square, then go down into an underground passage, where people in a hurry were also pushing and literally stepping on each other's heels. God, couldn't the stations be connected somehow? Many people change from train to bus and vice versa, she muttered to herself. She was sweating in her down jacket from the fast walk. Strands of her brown hair were poking out from under her hat, and the suitcase she was dragging behind her looked like it was going to tear her arm off. Already barely tolerable, Amanda walked into the building and saw the huge lines. The women's restroom. And it's in a train station. However, the toilet is working. One of the people standing there was indignant. There were no people in front of the men's. Amanda, disregarding propriety, opened the door, saw a vacant stall, and ran in without thinking. The woman slammed the door shut behind her with a jerk and finally went to the bathroom. "Oosh," she sighed in relief and smiled. That incredible feeling of relief. And then she saw that she hadn't closed the latch on the stall door. But it didn't matter, because luckily no one was trying to get in from the other side. The woman pushed the handle and pushed the door open to get out. But it wouldn't open. The handle didn't go all the way down. Amanda jerked on it some more, but to no avail. "What kind of bad luck is this?" she said aloud. "Madam?" came a voice from the next stall. A little surprised to hear that woman's voice. "But do you need help?" Very much, Amanda ventured, embarrassed. "I think the lock's jammed. The knob won't budge." Just a second, she heard the sound of water running from the stall. "Okay, now my hands are blistered. I'll think of a way to get you out." Amanda heard the sound of water running from the faucet, then the sound of a zipper being stretched, and then some rustling. "Found it," the man said cheerfully. He started picking something in the lock, and after a minute he swung the door open. And here I am, saving the princess imprisoned in the tower, he joked, holding a screwdriver. Yeah, Amanda smiled. A good princess upset with the press in front of the toilet. You're a fine lady. The man winked at her, and she admired his brown eyes. Dark-haired, handsome man. Thank you, seriously, the woman said as she left the stall. And I'm sorry to barge into the men's room, but I'll tell you the whole epic with the search for the restroom. Can we go out of here? The man suggested, and continue our acquaintance over a cup of tea. My treat. I agree, Amanda said. Where can I get something to eat here? I don't know the city. Let's go to a pancake house right here at the station, the man suggested. My name is John, by the way. Amanda, the woman replied. I agree. The pancake house is good. Let's go before the next leg of the road. They went to the far end of the building, where a sign with the image of appetizing pancakes hung. Once inside, they placed their order. Amanda chose cheese pancakes, and John chose chicken pancakes, plus 2 cups of black tea. We sat down at a table while we waited. Where are you from? The man started the conversation. On business or visiting? Is this your first time here? No, not for the first time. I've already come once for an interview. I'm from the district center. We don't have much work there. I found a vacancy here. I got hired, and I'm moving. Brevity is the sister of talent, John smiled. In a few sentences, they informed me of the events of the past few weeks. And what do you do? The woman asked. Where did you get a screwdriver all of a sudden? I work in a construction company. Constantly on the road, inspects objects. I accidentally picked up a screwdriver at the construction site after checking the fasteners. I found it on the train, called my colleagues and told them that I would bring it back the next time I visited them. It was a lucky coincidence for me, Amanda said. I don't know how long I would have had to sit there if it hadn't been for you. Oh, our order is ready. John got up and went and got it. Voila. He put the tray on the table. I'll pay for it. I insist, the woman said. You have a lot of money you need for rent. You'll need it now. Keep it, and I won't have to rent a hostel. That's why I got this job. It pays well and I have a place to live. After all, a hostel is cheaper than an apartment. I see, the man replied. But still, I'm not used to paying for women. So I insist on treating you. All right, Amanda accepted. Where do you live? I'm in the suburbs. I own my own house, built it a few years ago for my family. The woman blushed a little because she was starting to like this man. Are you married? Not anymore? No, he answered with restraint. My wife died, a transient cancer. My daughter is left behind. It's just the 2 of us. I'm sorry. My condolences, Amanda said sympathetically. How old is your daughter? She'll be 9 soon. She's my pride and joy. She's a good student. She plays sports. What kind of sports? I just got a job. State Athletics Training Center. She does skiing, plans to participate in races, but so far she's only enrolled in a sports school. Enrollment starts at age 9, but the coach was cooperative. Her daughter is a little younger, but they say she has abilities. Are you an athlete? What kind of sport do you do? I'm not. I take care of the athlete's health. I'm a nurse. Oh, how interesting. It's a bit of a catch-22, if you'll pardon the expression. I've been getting some injections lately. Don't think I'm sick. I just banged my elbow on a door jamb. Now it's a nerve problem. I can't feel my fingers. There's this nasty feeling that the whole nerve from elbow to hand is like a taut rope. Yeah, it's a minor injury, but it's a nasty one, Amanda agreed. Well, I do not want to go to the clinic for injections only to lose time in lines. So I was thinking of hiring a visiting nurse when I get back from my business trip. Maybe you'd be willing to help me out. Oh, I'd love a part-time job. But how would you get to the suburbs? There's a shuttle bus. If it's convenient for you, I'd rather invite you to our company's office. It's downtown. I'm just working all the time. My daughter is looked after by a governess and my mother-in-law. And me, staying late and at night, it would hardly be convenient for you to come to our house. It's a deal, Amanda said. I'll just check my schedule at the new place and contact you to discuss a convenient time. And for that we need to exchange phone numbers, the man smiled. Write mine down. That's how they began to communicate. And for 10 days, which lasted a course of prescribed injections, they became close. This was undoubtedly due to the daily contemplation of my naked heel, John joked. Yes, I appreciated your confidence, Amanda agreed. They began seeing each other on John's rare days off. His daughter Catherine was very unhappy with Amanda's appearance. Daddy, let's go out. I miss you so much. Why are you leaving home for that woman? The girl asked unhappily. Don't you love me anymore? Of course I do. I just want to take a little break from work and family matters and spend time with someone I like, the man said as affectionately as possible. You'll like her, you'll see. However, the girl took her father's new friend in stride. John and Amanda did not give up hope that the girl will eventually change her mind. But that didn't happen. After the first meeting and a trip to the park, they tried to go to the movies together, but Catherine again only frowned, showing that she was not interested in everything that was happening. You know what I suggest? John suddenly suggested to Amanda the next day. I think if we all live under the same roof, Catherine will realize that we're serious, and she'll soften up on you. I don't think it's time yet, Amanda shrugged. Maybe we should wait. Why wait until we're old? I want to live a full life with my family now, not put everything off for the future, the man insisted. The woman agreed, even though it seemed like a bad idea to her still only a few months after meeting him. She gave up her dorm room and moved in with John. Catherine took this fact with unexpected calm. A week later, Amanda realized why. Honey, my childhood friend Charlie is coming to visit us on Sunday, John said on Friday. He lives in another city and wants to show his fiancée his native New York. But he wants to meet my fiancée too. He hugged the woman and kissed her. And I'm already in bride status, Amanda smiled as she returned the kiss and also hugged the man. Of course I'm an honest man and I always marry the ones I love, John jokingly assured her. If that can be considered a proposal, then I'm in, Amanda said. That's just in case, the man said affectionately. We'll talk about it later. On Sunday, Amanda woke up early. She set the alarm clock for 8 because it was going to be an active day. She had to feed the guests breakfast after the road, then walk around the city, show the sights to Charlie's fiancée, and in the evening have dinner at a restaurant. Amanda really wanted to make a good impression on the people close to John. Now we'll have a quick coffee, she thought as she looked at the sleeping John. Then I'll do breakfast, and closer to their arrival I'll do my makeup and hair. With those thoughts, she stood up and reached for her glasses, which were on the nightstand. The woman had poor eyesight, so she wore contact lenses for work and other occasions when she left the house. At home, she wore glasses. Now Amanda was running her hand over the surface of the nightstand, trying to find the glasses, but it was as if they weren't there. That's odd, the woman thought. Maybe John moved them. But why? And I don't want to wake him up. She got up, bent over to the nightstand, trying to see what was on it. Then squatted down and ran her hands across the floor, deciding that the glasses might have fallen there. Amanda then looked for them everywhere on the nightstand at John's side, on the dressing table where her makeup was, and on the windowsill. But the glasses were nowhere to be found. God, I threw away my contact lenses yesterday, remembered the woman. How am I going to get ready for the guests? John was supposed to buy the lenses. Later in the morning, he was going to meet the guests at the train station and could stop at the optician's on the way. For now, without lenses or glasses, Amanda was effectively paralyzed. She couldn't cook, she couldn't clean the house. The feeling of helplessness made her cry. What happened? John woke up. Upon hearing what had happened, he said he would go get the lenses right away. John, at 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning, where's the optician open? Amanda sighed. I'll find out which store opens first, the man said soothingly. In the meantime, you try to relax. Amanda went back to bed, since she couldn't do anything anyway. John picked up his phone, went online, looked for the nearest optician open from 9 o'clock, and started to get ready to go. Let's listen to some music, he said, handing Amanda a small player. It helps me on business trips when I get tired of looking at my phone on the train. Amanda put on the headphones, turned on the player, and closed her eyes. John was right, the tunes distracted her, and it didn't seem so bad that she wouldn't have time to do her hair as she'd planned. The most important thing for her was to feed her guests. I'll have to do without baking. I won't have time, she realized, and began to rethink the menu. Half an hour later, John returned. Amanda put on her lenses and finally went to wash her face and then to the kitchen. To her surprise, there on the windowsill were her glasses. John, how did they get here? She asked in amazement to the man who had entered next. Did you leave them here? He laughed. You've ruined your own mood this morning. I'm sure I didn't put them here. Why would you? How would I have gotten to the bedroom without them? Well, maybe you're tired. Took them off, left them on. The man shrugged. But Amanda was sure she couldn't have done such a thing. She had a bad suspicion in her head that she decided not to voice for the time being. In a couple of hours, the guests were to arrive, and she didn't want to meet them with a scandal and without food, so she started cooking. The rest of the day went according to plan. John's friend and his fiancée arrived. Everyone liked each other and had a good time. Even Catherine, who had been taken for a walk around the city, seemed to be in a good mood. Maybe I'm imagining things for myself, thought Amanda, observing the girl's behavior. But after a few more days, she became convinced of what she already suspected. The child began to constantly do small nasty things to her, then hide something, then in the yogurt spilled cereal, then throw shoes. Amanda just kept quietly tidying up. After one of the first incidents, she tried to inform John about his daughter's antics, but the response was not what she had hoped for. John, do you really believe I would do such a thing? For some reason, Amanda led the man into the living room where her underwear was strewn across the couch and chairs. Why would Catherine do such a thing? He said indignantly. Because she doesn't like me. This isn't the first time she's done something like this. Remember the stories about the glasses? I don't know why you're snapping at her. It can all be explained by your forgetfulness. I forgot that I left my underwear all over the room, but you what? Let's drop the subject, the man said irritably. I love both you and my daughter, so try not to swear. Nice touch, washed his hands of it, Amanda thought resentfully. Okay, I'm not going to take revenge on the child, I'll be patient. It went on like that for about a year, until the family moved into a new big house. John insisted. I want to see a new family nest in a new place, he told Amanda. I was living with a different family in the old house after all. It's time for us to start our own. You and I have been putting off getting married. But I think we should get married, and the house is officially in your name. You're a little emotional when you talk about such important steps, aren't you? The woman was a little surprised. Perhaps I'm afraid to jinx my happiness, the man smiled. It hurts when you enjoy life, and it is like envy to you as a footstool. Like my first wife died, Catherine had just grown up. I got the job I have now, and everything was going so well. And then it all fell apart. We'll be fine, Amanda said softly. They chose a house together. Catherine was excited about the move. I'll have a big room, the girl rejoiced. Yes, your current one in our old house will seem like a cubbyhole compared to it, John replied. Let's go with your taste. Amanda decided to improve the opportune moment, as long as the girl was in a good mood. Let's you be the one to choose our common house. Look where you like best, what room, what yard, and so on. Okay, Catherine agreed cheerfully. John silently took Amanda's hand and discreetly stroked her fingers in appreciation. They found the house quickly enough. The two-story building was located in a quiet neighborhood. There was a small courtyard in front of the front door, and a large area at the back of the building where they could plant flower beds or vegetables. Trees were already growing their fruit: apples, pears, ornamental, and birch trees. The whole family literally fell in love with this place, and the deal to buy it was done. A couple weeks later, they moved in and immediately put their old place on the market. We'll use the money to go on a honeymoon, John said that evening at the first dinner in the new house. And we're going to furnish the place to our liking. And we'll buy you a car, finally. Thank you. I'm very happy right now, Amanda replied. And I'm grateful that you've changed my life. You changed mine, the man looked at her tenderly. Catherine, who was watching the scene, wrinkled her nose but said nothing. 6 months later, the couple played a wedding. There were few guests: John's father, his mother was dead, Amanda's parents, and a few of their closest friends. An unexpected guest was the man's former mother-in-law. He kept good relations with Anna Vitalievna and even decided to invite her to his new marriage. God grant you a long life together, she sincerely wished him, raising her glass. Amanda looked at her gratefully, happy that this woman who had lost her daughter had found the strength to accept the new woman who was taking care of her granddaughter. She didn't know then what her ex-mother-in-law's love for her child, the only family she had left, would mean. I'm not wearing that. Catherine threw her summer dress in Amanda's direction. They'll make fun of me at school. Years passed. Catherine turned 15 and adolescence was in full force. By this time, she had won many competitions in cross-country skiing, received a sports category, and was enrolled in the School of Olympic Reserve. The school year was about to begin, and Amanda offered encouragement to update her closet. It was on the day Amanda was going to take her shopping that Catherine ruined her stepmother's morning coffee. I'm an athlete, not a party girl, irritatedly said the girl now, running from one outlet to another. But you're a girl. You have to look like one, Amanda answered her calmly. You can't always wear tracksuits. But I do play sports, Catherine countered. But not all of you. You have to wear something to class, to lectures. I'll see what other people wear, then I'll decide. But thank you for your concern. Catherine finished the conversation. Amanda sighed and followed the stubborn girl to the sportswear store. Buy new tracksuits, it was impossible to understand her stepdaughter. Sometimes she seemed to be good to her stepmother. And sometimes Amanda found that she continued to sneak around. It usually happened after some sort of spat. I wonder what she'll come up with tomorrow, the woman thought curiously, waiting for the girl from the fitting room. Will she put something in my coffee again? Will he delete my files in my laptop or throw out something worse? But surprisingly, there were no consequences. Despite the disagreement at the store, the girl hadn't gotten back at her stepmother in any way. Amanda had really hoped that the simmering conflict would die down on its own when Catherine entered college and moved into the dormitory. But John insisted that his daughter stay at home. I know what goes on in these dormitories, he said. I don't want you wasting your time hanging out instead of studying. At that moment, Catherine and Amanda finally shared something in common: disappointed facial expressions. Both had hoped to see each other less often. Oh well, I'll wait for her to get married, Amanda thought with bitter irony. The everyday life dragged on. Everything went on as usual. John often went on business trips. Amanda worked as a nurse. Catherine was at college until late in the evening. A phone call interrupted the routine, and in December, disaster struck. "We can't find your husband," Amanda got a call from the college that afternoon. "Your little girl has been seriously injured. She's in the emergency room." Amanda didn't remember taking off work and calling a cab. Despite everything, she loved this girl, even though she didn't reciprocate. She ran to the emergency room and learned that Catherine had a displaced tibia fracture and was being prepped for emergency surgery. "Do you need parental consent?" The woman asked the young doctor who admitted Catherine. "Her father is now in another city, and I did not adopt her. Can I give permission?" "It's okay," the doctor replied. "At 15, she can consent to surgery on her own." "Okay," Amanda said, confused. "So it's bad. What's the prognosis?" "I'm not an attending physician. I just examined her and referred her for surgery," the man replied. "Talk to a specialist later. All I can say is that this type of fracture is complex, and rehabilitation after it is very long. But she will not be disabled. She's an athlete." "Let's hope not," shrugged the doctor. "Understand, everything will be clear at the operation. Depends on how well the specialist will be able to assemble the bone. I really can neither scare nor reassure you." "It's fine now." "I'm sorry," Amanda said. "Wait until the surgery is over. The doctors will come out and tell you everything at once." The woman went to wait in the lobby of the clinic. She tried to call John, but he didn't pick up. Maybe he's in negotiations, Amanda thought, even though it had been hours already, and no one still couldn't reach him. How worried is he going to be, poor guy? I guess I can't understand these parental feelings. After all, it's not like I don't have kids. Her thoughts jumped to the unpleasant history of their attempts to have a child. Amanda and John had thought about it a couple of years ago, when their life together had settled down. They were in their early 30s, and the chances of having a baby were quite high. However, Amanda was not able to get pregnant. They had undergone numerous tests that showed the couple to be perfectly healthy. "There are such cases," explained the fertility doctor. "There may be something going on due to nervous tension, and the body doesn't want to get pregnant in a stressful situation of the stressors." Amanda could only remember her relationship with her stepdaughter. Otherwise, she and John had a calm, measured life without upheaval. And it appeared that, ironically, she was unable to have a child because of the presence of another child in her life. Her nervous thoughts were interrupted by a phone call. It was John. "Oh my God," he said, horrified to hear what had happened. "I'm on my way. I'll be there tomorrow. Take care of everything, please." The girl was operated on immediately. The doctor came out to Amanda and said he was satisfied with the result. Catherine was coming out of anesthesia, and the woman was told that she could visit her tomorrow. Amanda went home. "It's unaccustomedly quiet here," she thought as she entered the house. Amanda went to the bedroom, and from her worry she powerlessly sank down on the bed and fell asleep. It was as if everything went well from there. Catherine was discharged, being warned that she would have a cast for at least 2 months. The girl was very upset because she missed classes and was basically very limited in movement. She sat at home, read a lot, and watched movies. "You look so downcast," Amanda said, looking at her daughter. "What do you want?" "She's very worried about not being able to play her favorite sport," John replied. "It's hard for her at her age to put up with so much. It's all about getting it right," John sighed. "I'm sure she'll catch up with her classmates." But Catherine was not so lucky. When it came to the point to remove the cast and begin the long rehabilitation process, it turned out that the bones are not properly healed, and there were symptoms of osteoporosis. The bone had become less dense and less strong, the doctor explained to John and Amanda. This can lead to new fractures, even from minor stresses. "What should we do?" John asked. His voice trembled. "Treat it. First, we have another operation as soon as possible. And then take special drugs to stimulate bone formation. The endocrinologist prescribes them." "That's good. Who do you recommend?" clarified the worried father. "I would recommend treatment abroad. There are good clinics in Germany, but it will be expensive, you understand." "We'll find the money," John replied calmly. They drove home depressed in Amanda's car. The woman was driving. John and Catherine sat in the back. The girl pressed herself against her father and cried quietly, realizing that it will not soon be able to take up skiing and generally return to the usual way of life. "I'll have to leave the school," finally raised her voice Catherine. "Let's not be in a hurry," John said soothingly and held his daughter to himself. "Take a sabbatical for a year." Amanda was silent the whole way there and back. The woman sympathized with Catherine, but she had some very important news of her own that she didn't want to tell her family yet. What good fortune. What bad timing, Amanda thought in the bathroom this morning when she saw the 2 long-awaited stripes on the pregnancy test. No, the good news will have to wait after all. I have to deal with Catherine first. The woman decided and put the test back in the package, and then hid it in the pocket of her robe. And now, on her way home, she tried her best to hide her joy at finally becoming a mother. No matter how hard she tried to shift her focus to her stepdaughter's health, Amanda couldn't escape the thoughts of her future child. Boy or girl, she pondered. And how will they get along with Catherine? Won't she be jealous if she starts doing nasty things like she did to me? This is where Amanda started to get worried. And that's when she intercepted her stepdaughter's tense gaze in the rearview mirror. Amanda flinched. She was staring at her with unconcealed anger. The woman averted her eyes and gripped the steering wheel. She felt very scared. She had a premonition of something very bad. "I found a suitable clinic for Catherine in Germany," John said a few days later. "Now I will collect the money. The amount, of course, astronomical, more than 1,000,000 rubles. And this is only for the operation. And also rehabilitation." "What's all this money for?" Amanda was horrified. "It includes not only surgery, but also tests, a consultation with an orthopedic traumatologist before the operation, and examination after the surgery. 3 days in the hospital, 6 days in a hotel. And transportation, pick up from the airport, take to the hospital, and then to the hotel." I see, the woman sighed. "At least afterward, when Catherine comes home, I'll be able to take care of her myself. I'm a nurse, so at least we'll save a little money." "Why don't you want money from me?" Catherine suddenly said rudely. "There's plenty to spend it on." Amanda was taken aback. "I just wanted to know what the money would be used for. So it's all inclusive, except for the food. That means there's money for that too." "You're right," said John. "I plan to borrow the whole amount from the director of my company and pay off part of her salary." John served the whole amount and made an appointment. The director agreed to give the money in a large advance, and John received it a few days later. "I've never seen so much money," Amanda said as they spread the bills out on their bed to do an exact count. "It should be enough for everything, both surgery and rehab." "But I'll give you more if you need it," John said. "Children are sacred." "How do I tell him I'm pregnant?" Amanda thought after he said that. Maybe I should wait until Catherine's surgery and then tell him the good news. They put the money in the nightstand in the bedroom and went to bed. In the morning, everyone went to work, leaving Catherine to pack. For the hospitalization, her grandmother Anne came over to help. All day, Amanda was distracted. She barely worked her shift. Tired, she got in her car and drove home. The next day, she felt worse, dizzy and nauseous. Could it be toxemia? Amanda thought. It's a little early. Maybe it's the age thing. I wouldn't drive today in case she felt sick, so I'd call a cab. At work, she felt bad. She excused herself and went to see a gynecologist. Her eyes were blurry. Could Catherine have poisoned me with something? She had a terrible thought. No, she's not capable of serious harm. She can't do a little mischief, but she can't poison me. The doctor advised Amanda to drink plenty of water, to include fermented milk products and porridge in her diet, and prescribed magnesium and vitamin B6 supplements. Amanda drove home, wishing she could go to bed sooner. She felt weak and drowsy, but a nightmare awaited her at home. The money's gone. She was startled to see John at her doorstep. How? Catherine was home, and her grandmother Anne. Who could have gotten in? They say they left to buy Catherine a backpack for the road. The old one was all worn out. But who could have known we had that kind of money at home? Only ours. Your principal. Amanda was thinking out loud. I'm shocked, to be honest, John admitted. We have to leave tomorrow. Everything's been arranged, and we don't have the money. Amanda went up to the second floor, went into the bedroom, and sat down on the bed at a loss. Her head was simply splitting. Her brain refused to recognize the reality of what was happening. She stared blankly at the nightstand where the money had been lying in the morning and didn't know how to comfort her husband. We found the money. She suddenly heard Anne's voice from downstairs. Amanda struggled to get up and walk downstairs. She was glad that the situation was resolved and wanted to know what had happened. She walked into the living room, and Anne said caustically, "Shame on you, thief." "What are you talking about?" Amanda asked, puzzled. "How could you steal money from a sick child?" Anne turned to her. "It's a good thing I thought to look in your car." "And we found the whole amount there," added Catherine, who was sitting next to her grandmother on the couch. John looked at his wife in silence with contempt. She did not know what to say, so absurd were these accusations. "She hid them in the trunk under a bag with some tools," said Anne. "I didn't expect that. You've lived together for so many years, and you?" "Why did you skip work today?" Catherine added. "We're thinking where to hide the money? Were you looking for a safety deposit box? Or did you want to give it to your lover, but you didn't have time to take it out?" "What is this nonsense?" Amanda finally found her voice. "And how do you know I wasn't at work? I called you to see if you had an extra backpack. I had a doctor's appointment." "You could have called my cell phone." "Why would you call my cell phone at work?" Catherine said, "I don't understand what you're thinking about money. You didn't plan any of this?" "That wasn't the plan." Anne interrupted her. "Maybe you planted it on me," suddenly realizing, turned to Catherine. "Amanda, nice setup. Very skillfully thought out this time. Slipping money into my car. It's not like putting pepper in my coffee. You're an asshole, not a human being." The woman suddenly burst into tears. "All these years we've been living, and you're ruining my life." So John roared, "Shut up," and he turned on his wife. "How dare you yell at my child, and a sick one at that? And how dare she accuse your wife of incomprehensible things?" Amanda parried. "Do you have some kind of double standard?" "Fuck you," suddenly bellowed her husband. "You can't touch my daughter, you infertile fool. I have you for her. Wanted to ruin her life. Disrupt the operation urgently. Are you out of your mind?" "I would never in my life have started," was Amanda, but no one was listening to her. "Get out," yelled John. "I don't want to see you. I'll file for divorce as soon as I get back from Germany. And I'll be damned if I leave you any property." 2 months later, Amanda sat in her dorm room and calculated how much money she had left before her paycheck. The amount was not encouraging. She had to keep buying vitamin supplements. Pregnancy was harder on her than expected. And I don't have any savings, Amanda pondered, and nothing to sell. John took everything from me. He signed the house over to himself in the divorce with his lefty lawyers in the car, and even the gifts he gave me. Over the years, all my inexpensive jewelry. Only her parents knew about her pregnancy. She didn't have time to tell John at first, and afterward she didn't want to. She was too hurt by the way her ex-husband had treated her. Maybe you should tell him, after all, Margaret's mother exhorted the woman. I don't want to. The daughter shook her head negatively. My child doesn't need a father who threw his mother out on the street after 6 years of living together without much of a trial. Take my grandmother on Dad's side of the family. She split up with her husband because of him, too. He cheated on her. So she went to her house in a remote village and did not let him on the doorstep when he came to repent. And after that he lived as a hermit. So she took offense at the whole world. I remember that story, Mom. I only visited her a couple of times when I was a child, and after that she refused to accept everyone and got into herbs. She treated the locals, but for some reason she didn't want to know her family. Strange, isn't it? And her house is still intact. But no one goes there. When they buried her, they forgot the road. It's probably overgrown. But I'm not going to be a hermit, Amanda smiled. I have no grudges against the whole world, just one person. It was time for the first ultrasound. A few months ago, Amanda never imagined that she would have to go in for a checkup alone, without her loving husband, on such an important day. Her mom was back in town. She couldn't stay with her daughter. Amanda's father had had a stroke and the man needed to be cared for. So the baby is fine, the doctor who performed the ultrasound told Amanda. Do you want to know who it's going to be? Yes. Amanda opened her eyes in anticipation and smiled contentedly when she heard the answer. It had been a year. John had been working on his daughter's rehabilitation the whole time. The operation in Germany was successful, but the cast was not removed for a long time, and it took a long time to develop the leg after all this. However, despite all efforts, Mary limped, and her character from this did not improve at all. Why did fate do this to me, said the girl irritably to her father. I wanted to devote my life to sports. And what in the end? What am I to do now? To live and recover in time is how long has it been? Do you believe I'll miraculously heal and start skiing again? Look, but you can be more than just an athlete or a coach. There are different training programs, including for people with disabilities. What do you think I am? Handicapped? Catherine exclaimed with tears of anger in her eyes. No, that's not what I meant to say. John tried to calm his daughter. But she did not listen and went to her room. These conversations were happening more and more often, and they were devastating to the man. I was always on her side, he thought bitterly. So many years did not marry, took care of her feelings. Kicked the traitor Amanda out when I found out she was dirty. Now I live alone. Why doesn't she appreciate that? The young man was totally dependent on his daughter's whims. He reluctantly went home from work, because there he was waiting for a frowning-faced Catherine in her eternal dissatisfaction with complaints. He began to spend even more time on business trips, and in one of them met a nice woman, Amber. She worked as a waitress at the restaurant where he and his partners went for dinner. Where do you always go at night? After a month, my daughter suspected something was wrong. I go out with my friends. Not all. I have to babysit you. John cut him off. In fact, he did not want to tell his daughter about his personal life, remembering her attitude to Amanda. The man offered Amber to move to his town, rented her an apartment the income allowed, and visited her several times a week. Amber accepted the status of secret lover. I don't care, she told her friend in a telephone conversation. Like a cheese and butter, I roll around. I don't have to work. I make eyes at him. I chase his legs, and he, sweetheart, is ready for anything." She laughed. "You're lucky," she sighed enviously. "I would have to find someone to provide me with everything. Maybe we'll get married." Amber continued to brag. "I've been hinting at him, working him up, but he's afraid to introduce me to his daughter. According to his stories, she's a very spoiled, capricious girl." "But good luck to you," wished her friend. "At least call me to the wedding. I'm sure you'll get what you want." But the plans of calculating Amber was not destined to materialize. However, it was only her own fault she missed socializing. Sitting alone in her apartment 24 hours a day, she got herself a lover 20-year-old Michael from the neighboring entrance, who was constantly looking at the poor woman, who went shopping at the grocery store in a provocative short dress and stilettos. One day she lured him with her finger into the entryway, and he obediently followed her. "You are my goddess," whispered the enchanted young man, lying in bed after his lovemaking. His admiration pleased her ego but let her guard down. One day she was kissing a young lover in the street near her driveway and didn't notice John pulling up in his car. He got out of the car and stood silently watching Amber and Michael embrace. "Young man," he finally said snidely, "let me help you pack up your beauty's things and take them outside. She's moving in with you now, I suppose." Amber and Michael looked away from each other, stunned. The woman realized it was pointless to make excuses in such a situation and, sighing, went to her entryway to say goodbye to her apartment and to pack up her belongings. What a fool, she thought frustratedly. Now to return home with nothing to eat. "Emberochka, really move in with me," Michael said, catching up with her on the stairs. "Are you stupid?" she answered rudely, opening the apartment. "Milk on your lips has not dried up, and you're already climbing up skirts? Get out," and slammed the door in his face. The confused guy with the eyes of a hurt kitten remained standing in the stairwell, but Amber didn't care about him anymore. "God, who have I messed with?" John pondered as he walked home. It's from loneliness, apparently not recognizing a woman of easy virtue, he began to feel very sorry for himself. It felt like he was paying the price. But by an effort of will, the man restrained himself. At home, he was waiting for the second part of the play, which could be called a comedy of situations. But it was not a comedy, but a tragedy. Catherine met her father with hysterics. "I want to go to the sea," she declared, suddenly entering the living room, where the man sat down to rest from emotion. "Catherine is tired of sitting at home and going to doctors. Daughter, it is necessary to heal. Something cranky. We'll go on vacation in a couple of months, I promise." "Why not now? I'm tired. I want to swim. It's good for my leg." "Let's go this week," she demanded of her father. "Stop it," John shouted at her, his nerves finally giving out. First the mistress surprised him, then the daughter made demands. "Why are you yelling at me? Why are you acting like a little kid? You're an adult, but you're only doing things. You're sassing me. What do you want? You don't like me. Maybe your new baby will be better. Is that what you're counting on?" "What baby, for God's sake?" John waved her away. "I'm not having any kids. If you found out about Amber somehow, don't worry, I broke up with her." "Amber? Who the hell is Amber?" "I meant your Amanda. Did she have an abortion or something?" "I don't get it," John frowned. "Why are you bringing her up? And what does that have to do with the abortion?" "But she should have been in labor by now. Didn't you even ask if you had a son or a daughter? She was pregnant when she left here." It finally came to John. "I didn't know about it." "How did you know?" "I found a 2-stripe pregnancy test in her robe. She obviously didn't put someone else's in there." "Oh my God. So you really did go through her stuff all the time, just like she said. And I was a fool not to believe it." Yes, Catherine smirked. I got rid of her beautifully, didn't I? Our plan was a success. John silently looked at the monster, in which he could not recognize his daughter, and with horror waited for the continuation, although he was beginning to guess what she means. Grandma Ann helped me, the girl said. As soon as I found this test, I realized that you would soon abandon me. New wife, new offspring. Her tone became dismissive when it came to the baby. So I got my grandmother to help me plant money for my stepmother. I could barely walk on my own. How could you? John exhaled in shock. Grandmother broke quickly, boasted Catherine. She has no one but me. She was already worried about me. And then I frightened her that you'll start a new family. You'd dump me, an invalid, on her. So it's about money. It turns out, looked at Catherine father. In general, yes, she shamelessly confirmed. The man got up, left the living room and went to the second floor, not seeing the road. He came to his senses when he hit his toes on the banister, as if in a fog. Climbing the stairs, he went into his office, where there was a small bar, took out a bottle of cognac, a glass, sat down at his desk, and began to get methodically drunk. After a couple hours staggering, he went downstairs and hailed a cab. Get me Amanda, who recently moved in, he demanded of the janitor at the hostel where his wife had lived before their marriage. Amanda who? Go sleep it off, she scolded. I'll call the police. Nurse Amanda. She was supposed to move in here a year ago. I know exactly who you're talking about. She moved out before she gave birth. Bought herself a house. A house? John was surprised. Where did she get the money? You mean her ex-husband? The one who kicked her pregnant and penniless out of the house. She earned the money for the house. It was a very interesting story when she was 6 months pregnant. Amanda had lost her spirit. She went to work, returned to her dormitory in utter despondency. Didn't know where she was going to get the money to support her child. Her parents could not help. The father needed expensive medicines and physiotherapy. The woman didn't even think about returning to her hometown and creating additional expenses for her mother, for herself, and the child. Can't do this anymore, she thought, as Emily lay in her one room on an uncomfortably narrow bunk that made her back ache. I need a distraction, somewhere to get out so I don't spend a lot of money. And then the conversation with her mother about her reclusive grandmother popped into her head. Amanda was revitalized. It would be possible to go to that abandoned cottage, to walk away from the noisy city, to breathe the forest air. And in a few minutes she was on her way. The cabin was only 30 kilometers from the city. You could get to the nearest village by electric train, and then you had to walk a couple of kilometers through the forest. How overgrown is everything here, marveled the woman when she reached the place. And here my grandmother had medicinal herbs and a vegetable garden. She stepped inside the cabin. The shriveled door was unlocked. Inside was old furniture covered in dust. Amanda found a stool, laid a cellophane bag she had with her on it, and sat down to rest from the road. She was in a strange mood. How nice to go back to childhood for a little while, she thought. And how sad that I'm as lonely as my grandmother was. And then the woman's gaze fell on a puffy Soviet-era stationery book lying on a table nearby. She reached out, picked it up, and dust kicked up into the air. The recipes were written in the book in chemical pencil. I didn't know Grandma was into self-medication, Amanda marveled. She opened the book, and there were recipes for healing ointments and other remedies her grandmother had made. There were a good 100 of them, if not more. Leafing through the book, Amanda noticed a section called back pain. Interesting to try this, she thought. My back is hurting more and more every month. Late in the pregnancy, it's scary to think what will happen. I'll take this tome with me. At home, she prepared the ointment, having bought at the pharmacy those herbs that were in the recipe, and Vaseline as a base, tried to apply it to herself. And oh miracle! After 2 days, the pain in her back went away. The interested woman decided to try other recipes. Okay, let's try a hair mask. Amanda thought she was stressed because of her pregnancy and it caused a dull complexion. She decided to try the face mask because her skin looked terrible. The effect surprised not only her but also her coworkers. After a month, her skin was soft and her hair was smooth and shiny. Women at work flooded her with questions about what miracle remedy she was using. Amanda made them each a jar of her concoctions but didn't reveal the recipe. Word spread quickly, and soon she had a line of people lined up to receive the healing substances. We need to get someone to help, Amanda decided, and offered the job to the woman who lived closest to her. The same janitor who was now telling the story to John. I mostly just sit here, the older woman told the man. There's nothing to do at night, so I used to work part-time for your wife. And then she started selling goods through social media. It went well, and she moved into a small shop, opened it up and hired full-time help. John froze as he learned of his wife's fate. He had thought her a conniving liar until now, but it turned out that she was a capable businesswoman who started her own business without anyone's help. The child she gave birth, he inquired quietly. Yes, I can give you the address. You can talk to her yourself, the woman relented. Even though you have rattled her nerves, she was very fond of you at the time. John took the slip of paper with the address and thanked the woman profusely. Though he wanted to run to Amanda, he held back and went home, deciding he needed to get some sleep, sober up, and get himself back to normal. The next morning he showered, shaved, drank a few cups of coffee, and drove his car to his ex-wife's house. The closer he got to her house, the more nervous he became. What will she say to me? How will she take it? He pondered. If I were her, I'd probably spit in her face. He drove up to the right house, hidden by a tall green fence, got out of the car and knocked on the gate. After a while it swung open. Amanda looked up at him with the baby in her arms. John stood silent, unable to find the right words. Come in, the woman said, moving aside and letting him pass. I just found out about everything. About the pregnancy, John pronounced, waiting for her to close the wicket. She looked at him carefully and nodded toward the open door. Come inside. I'll give you tea. I had no desire to inform you after everything that's happened, Amanda said calmly as she walked into the kitchen. Sit down, I'll put the kettle on now. And how is Catherine? Has she recovered? Not so good. 1 minute she's better, the next she's worse. Moody. Behavior is atrocious because of it. I'm not surprised, Amanda smiled, rocking the baby who flinched at the sound of the kettle boiling. She wasn't an angel in the good times either. But whatever she thought, I treated her well and worried about her health. And she did such an ungrateful thing. She confessed everything John said. Said it was her and Anne who set you up. What was the point of that? Why so jealous of me and the baby? Amanda sighed. And that's him. You said baby, so is it a boy? A boy, the woman blurted out in a smile as she looked at her son. We're 4 months old soon. What did you name him? John held out his hands and Amanda gently handed the baby to him. Stepan Jonovich. Sound good? Tears came to the man's eyes. Sweetheart, can you forgive me? I was not myself because of my daughter's illness. I snapped at you. I believed everything. You know, with the baby coming, I'd begun to understand you better, Amanda replied. I don't know how I would have coped if Stepashka had gotten sick. How would I have behaved? So you can forgive me, John repeated. The most important question for him right now. Amanda answered it. We'll see. 6 months later, they celebrated a birthday. The baby was a year old. There were few guests, only the closest ones. Amanda's parents came. Her father got better and was able to endure the road. Also present were John's father and Catherine and her grandmother. "I can't help but admire your kindness," John whispered to Amanda, taking a moment when they were alone in the kitchen preparing to bring out the desserts for the holiday table. "You've forgiven Catherine and her grandmother. I think they've realized what they've done and are truly remorseful." "What's the big deal? Holding a grudge for the rest of your life? Especially now. After all, it was lucky to have such a sister as Catherine became." John smiled. "Yes, she really cares for him. Who would have thought it? She's forgotten about sports. She wants to be a teacher." "God grant us all wishes," said Amanda. "I already have all my wishes," the man replied. "I have a real strong family. All my loved ones are with me every day." They hugged each other and looked into the living room, where at the same table were gathered people who had made mistakes and were eager to correct them, who were angry with despair but found the strength to overcome themselves and rejoice in the changes, who fought with illnesses but inspired others with their kindness, and of course, who knew how to forgive their loved ones. After all, family is the most important, the most valuable thing in our lives. Deciding to follow her husband, the wife saw him getting on the wrong train and hopped on. "Mom, Dad, I want you to meet my boyfriend. Or rather, already with my fiancé," Emily said one evening when they were sitting together at dinner. Susan gasped. "Emily, how so? How long have you been dating him? And you haven't even said a word to us. It's all secret, all secret, all secret." "Mom, but why not? We've been dating for a while," Emily replied. "Michael came to see me with an injury. Anyway, it's been 2 months now, but the intentions are serious for both of us." "Daughter." "Congratulations to you," pronounced the father, who had been silent until then. "And when you had time to grow up, I didn't even notice. Time has flown by so quickly. You've graduated from the University of Medicine, you've begun to work, and now you're almost a bride." "Yes," said the mother thoughtfully. "I want a family like yours." "You've always been perfect for me," Emily said. "You talk to each other a lot, still write messages to each other, respectful to my brother and me, among others. I even gave you guys as an example to Michael and told him that you were the standard of a perfect relationship for me." "Emily, when are you going to introduce us?" Susan asked. "Michael and I are coming over for lunch this weekend. Mom, you don't bother cooking much, okay? You'll make a lot of dishes again. You'll get tired, so just make it hot and that's it. Michael and I will pick up some cake on the way." "Emily, I'll certainly try, but you know me, I probably won't be able to do that," Susan replied, grinning. "I like cooking. I like feeding you guys goodies, but I'll try." Emily had been working as a trauma doctor at the clinic for several years now. She graduated from the local medical university and immediately got a job at the clinic. Sometimes she took on inpatient duty, but only a couple of shifts a month. And meeting Michael happened right in the medical office. He was a pilot, an airplane commander. "Hello, come in, Doctor," Emily said in her duty phrase. It was a phrase she said 30 times every day. She didn't put much emotion into it. Absolutely not. And this time she said it without even lifting her head. Michael entered in his pilot's uniform, and Emily couldn't take her eyes off him for long. Tall, statuesque, handsome. "Good afternoon," said the young man. "I didn't expect to see such a fragile, beautiful person in the trauma doctor's chair." Emily broke into a smile. "And you, I see, from ship to ball," the girl asked. "Yes, you're right. Just off the flight, we flew with a flight from Vienna, and there was a rowdy passenger flying with us. The whole crew had to subdue him. That's what he got." Michael showed Emily his injured arm. "Well, I hope you landed normally," Emily tried to joke. "As you can see, both myself and all the passengers on Vienna to New York flight 345 arrived at our destination on time," the man reported back to her. "Yes, you have a nervous job," Emily said and began to examine her arm. I'm going to send you for x-rays now. We need to find out if there's a fracture. Here you go, room 205 is on the second floor. You'll take the x-rays and then come back to me. Michael nodded. He walked around for about 15 minutes, then came in again, but knocked first. Emily had already looked at his picture in the program. I want to reassure you there is no fracture. I'm going to give you some ointment now. You will put ointment on your bruise twice a day. I promise your arm will be healed before the wedding, and she handed the pilot a prescription to the pharmacy. The young man took the prescription in his hands. Then he said, Emily, I don't do this every day, but I want to take you out to dinner tonight. Emily, who had filled out the chart in the computer, immediately looked up. She was very excited about the offer and of course accepted it, but she needed to pause for the sake of decorum, which she did. You know what, Michael, I don't get offers like this every day either, so I'll take it, Emily answered and smiled at the man. Where should I pick you up? He asked. Emily gave him the address of the apartment where she lived. Michael picked her up at 7 p.m., as they had agreed. Emily put on the most beautiful dress, came out to him in heels, thus conquering him with her beauty and charm. I'm even more convinced that I didn't ask you to dinner for nothing. You're adorable, Michael said as he opened the car door for Emily. Thank you so much for the compliment, she said shyly. They had a wonderful evening, a delicious dinner, pleasant company. It was as if they were made for each other, and that's what they both thought. Since then, they met often, not every day, because Michael had flights and Emily was on night duty. But they were always drawn to each other. Michael was telling his mother about his new girlfriend, Susan. She was an overbearing woman, constantly controlling her son, always wanting to know where he was and with whom. That's why she was wary of every girl he met. Mom, Emily's great. She will definitely like you, I assure you, reported to his mother, like a schoolboy, 30-year-old Michael. And where did you two meet? Inquired already Susan, organizing her son's interrogation. In the hospital, he answered. In the voice of the mother was heard a note of surprise. At the hospital? Yes, Mom, in the hospital. Remember, we had a fight in the cabin of the airplane? After that, I went to the hospital. Doesn't she work there as a doctor? Is your new girlfriend a trauma doctor? Susan asked. Yes. What hospital does she work at? At the First Regional Hospital. Mom, do you want to see her too? My son snickered. No, not yet. But Susan has already thought out that in the next long-distance flight of her son, she will go to this new girl for a checkup. Don't worry, Mom. I'll introduce you to her very soon. But Susan met Emily faster than Michael had introduced them. 2 days later, she was already standing on the threshold of the hospital campus, knew everything about Emily that could be learned from the internet, how long ago she graduated from university, what is her work experience, in which office receives and until what time. How much is her appointment without an appointment? It was impossible to make an appointment. All the nearest appointment was taken, so Susan went to pay for it. The reason, of course, she made up allegedly a sore knee, although a woman like Michael's mother will run around the city for another 10 years and nothing will hurt her. Next, Emily uttered a phrase that had become a familiar one. Susan didn't have to be reminded a second time. She flew into the office like a bullet. Emily was surprised to see her in her office, but she didn't let on. Michael showed her a picture of his mother and told her that she was overprotective and overprotective. Hello, Emily said in a sweet voice. What are you complaining about, Susan? My knee hurts. Periodically, that is, she corrected herself in time. Does it hurt now? Emily asked. Not right now, Michael's mother replied. At the moment, I can suggest that you go for an MRI of the lower extremities. We'll see what kind of treatment will work best for you and what's wrong with your knee, because joint problems are very common in women your age. Let's go." The woman didn't want to go anywhere. That's not why she came here. No, not right now. Maybe later. Emily, that's not why I came here at all. The girl, who had been writing something in the patient's medical records, stood up from the table and looked at her in surprise. "Why did you come, Susan?" Emily said. "I can guess, though. You're Michael's mom. He's told me a lot of nice things about you." That made Susan smile. Really, she answered calmly. "And I want to know from you about the seriousness of your intentions for my son. Michael, he is my only son, and I do not want him to be used and abandoned as second-rate material. You have no idea how much I care about him. Yes, he works hard, he has money." Susan Emily interrupted her monologue. "I have very serious intentions for Michael. I love him, and I want to spend the rest of my life with him. I'm not the kind of girl who takes advantage of a man and leaves him, don't worry. Now, if you have everything, you can go with your knee if you want to, and if it is really hurting, you can get it sorted out. Come in by appointment or call me, and I'll make an appointment for you myself. The patients sitting in the hallway are waiting for my appointment too." Susan got up from her chair. She wasn't very pleased that Emily had asked her to leave so unceremoniously, but she didn't let it bother her. "Very good, Emily. All right, I'll go. I hope Michael introduces us very soon. And I also hope Michael doesn't find out I'm here." And the woman left the office. At the end of the workday, Emily pondered the arrival of her potential future mother-in-law. Why had she come like that, unannounced? She considered her arrival to be insolent and rude, but she wouldn't tell Michael about it. After all, it was his mother, and she wished him nothing but the best. Emily also wondered what impression she had made on the woman, but of course she wouldn't know about that either, because Susan wouldn't ask about it directly. Emily had been very stressed about her mother's condition lately. Susan was thoughtful, but did not say anything, although they had a very trusting relationship. Although Emily lived separately, she came to her parents' house several times a week. Or they met with her mother on neutral territory in a cafe, at the theater, just in the park. Susan had recently begun to notice her husband's coldness toward her. She and Jason had been together for 30 years, and all that time it seemed to Susan that they treated each other very tenderly. And just the day before yesterday, she had gone to her favorite lingerie store that she and her husband often visited. She needed new pajamas, and in front of the store entrance, she saw her husband's car. "Strange, Jason's here without me," she thought to herself. "He must want to make me happy." While she thought about it, Jason came out of the store, got in his car, and drove away. Susan didn't even have time to react. With the hope that tonight she would get a present, the woman ran into the lingerie store satisfied. "Girls, please pick me up some pajamas," she said. "But not like my grandmother's, but with lace." "We understand," Susan, the sales clerks, who knew Susan and Jason's family, said friendly and began to pick out clothes for her. Jason ran out of the lingerie store in a hurry and left the bag with a lace bodysuit on the counter. The salesgirls didn't notice it right away, but only when Susan left. Coincidentally, Susan mixed up the packages and took the one that belonged to her husband Jason and left her own. It was only at home that she noticed this exchange of goods. That evening, excitedly after dinner, she unpacked her purchase. But what was her surprise when she saw in the bag not her pajamas at all, but a pink, lacy, translucent bodysuit. And the size was clearly not hers. She took the receipt out of the bag and decided to call the store, which was going to close in 15 minutes. She wanted to let her know that she had gotten the wrong package today. "Hello, girls, I came to see you today for pajamas," the woman said. She was recognized on the other end of the line. "I think I mixed up the bags." I didn't take my own, but in the bag with someone else's purchase, she said. Do you have the receipt? The girl on the other end of the line asked. I'll look at it. Yes, there is, said Susan, who pulled out a check for a considerable amount of money. She thought to herself that someone's man was very generous to his woman. Please tell me the number of the discount card. We can use it to tell you who the purchase belongs to, the girl said. Just a second, Susan took the check, called the numbers on the receipt. This card and the purchase belonged to Jason Smith. Susan, hearing her husband's first and last name, fell into a stupor. But she needed to finish her dialogue with the store employee. Okay, got it. I'll return the merchandise tomorrow and pick up mine. Thank you. Have a good evening, she said, and hung up. After the conversation, she once again went to the gift bag that contained the item that wasn't hers, unfolded the bodysuit. It was about a size 44. Susan's size now was closer to a 58. This before, about 15 years ago, she might have fit into this bodysuit, but definitely not now. Who's this for? Jason bought lingerie. Did he have a mistress? Questions immediately began to pop into her head. The thoughts made a cold sweat run down her spine. No, my husband is not capable of that. We have lived in love and harmony for 30 years. Raised 2 children. Susan thought. She sat down in the chair and couldn't move. It was as if she had been electrocuted. It was the phone call that brought her out of her thoughts. Susan, hi. Why aren't you answering your phone? It was her best friend Ashley calling. Hello? Susan, can you hear me? I can hear you, Susan mumbled quietly. Susan, what's wrong? What's wrong with your voice? I don't know. I think something's wrong. Can I come over now? Ashley asked, who was in the neighborhood where Susan and Jason lived. Yes, come over, I'm home, Susan added and hung up. She sat in the chair with the same unfortunate pink lace bodysuit in her hands until Ashley arrived. Here, look, she handed Ashley the bodysuit. What is it? Ashley asked, surprised, twirling the underwear in her hands. A bodysuit. My husband bought it for someone. Susan told her friend the story. Well, Susan, what if it's a mistake? You've already got yourself in a twist, her friend consoled her. Yeah, do you believe in this idea of a mistake? Jason was buying lacy lingerie, and it wasn't for me, Susan summarized. I saw it with my own eyes. Yes, you did. Don't you want to ask him yourself? You've always said that Jason and you have a trusting relationship, Ashley suggested. I guess I'll have to do that. But I'm afraid I'm going to have to do it, because then my whole idea of a perfect family will be destroyed overnight. But it's better than not knowing, Susan said. Let's have some tea, because I'm so thirsty. She bustled around the stove in the kitchen. Ashley stayed at her friend's house until evening, and then she left. Her presence calmed Susan a little, but the arrival of her husband from work brought her back down to earth. She decided not to tell him about the purchase she'd discovered. Hey Jason, how was your day? Susan asked her husband as usual. The same, sweetheart. As usual, Jason replied tiredly. Sorry, I won't eat dinner. I'm going to take a shower and go to bed. I have to get up early tomorrow, and I have an important meeting in the morning. I'll lie down in the living room so you won't be in the way. Susan tried to say the words in a firm voice so that she wouldn't show her husband her resentment. She wanted him to say, beloved, this is not disturbing me at all. I want to sleep tonight only with you. Therefore, what living room? But alas, the reality was quite different. Okay, Jason said, and went straight to the shower. Susan could hardly hold back her tears. In the morning, Jason left at about 6 a.m. Susan had just gotten up. Susan had just had time to get up when he ate breakfast and said, I walked over to my wife, kissed her, and left for work. Susan was alone. Emily, hi. Susan called her daughter for advice. Can I see you tonight? I'm sorry, Mom, I can't. I thought we said Friday, Emily replied. Did something happen to you? Yes, I did. All right, well, let's do it tonight at our cafe. All day, Emily thought not about her patients, but about what could have happened to her mother. As a doctor, she immediately thought that she had some serious illness. Therefore, in the evening at the cafe, the girl began with the topic of illness. Mom, don't worry. Nowadays, almost everything can be cured. We'll find you the best clinic, even abroad. Emily, what are you talking about? Susan couldn't hide her surprise, despite her daughter's pained look. I'm not sick. You mean you're healthy? I thought you'd found out you were ill, and that's why you've been so brooding lately. No, Amy, that's not the case. Susan pulled herself together to tell her the problem. It's that your father is cheating on me. Emily could not believe this information, as she had found out about it by accident. Susan recounted to her daughter the whole story with underwear, which completely accidentally surfaced in the woman's life. Yes, I never thought that my father could do such a thing, Emily said thoughtfully. Do you know who she is? No, and I want to find out soon. I just don't know how. Amy, I lied to Michael by telling him that we have a perfect family. We're just a normal family with a typical cheating husband. That's how it turns out, as sad as it looks. While the women were talking, the waiter brought them coffee. Thank you very much, Emily thanked him for the order. The waiter nodded in response. Mom, we need to think of a way to get him out. Let's think about it together. I just don't know how to act in a situation like this, because it's the first time I've been in it. And Susan cried softly. Mommy, please calm down. No one deserves your tears. I know it hurts, but we'll get through this together. Emily hugged her mom tightly. That night, Jason came in and said that he had to go to his mother's house in another town, that she was supposedly sick. I'll take the train. It'll be faster and there won't be any traffic. I'm leaving tomorrow night. Maybe I should come with you, Susan suggested timidly. No, not yet, he replied quickly. You know your mother doesn't like you very much, don't you? Let's not traumatize her just yet. All right, Susan sighed. She had no relationship with her mother-in-law, no matter how they tried to make it work. Her mother-in-law was a bossy woman who wanted Jason to be with her. And when Susan came into his life, she didn't take kindly to her. Grandchildren Emily and Anthony loved immensely. But Susan never accepted. And Susan was very upset by this fact. But she gave up trying to please her mother-in-law. What time is your train tomorrow? Susan wondered whether Jason would lie or tell the truth. At 5:10 p.m., her husband answered. I'll walk you out. You don't have to, mind your own business. You have a lot of work to do around the house, he said. And it was true, there was always a lot of work in his house. It seemed to never end. Susan decided to follow her husband, who went to check on her sick mother. Arriving at the train station a little earlier, the woman saw her husband. True, he got on the train, not the one Susan expected, but the one that was going in the exact opposite direction. And Susan decided on her own head to quickly jump into the last carriage of the train to follow him. After going through all the cars and finding Jason in one of them, Susan sat behind him. It wasn't a long ride, only about an hour. Susan filled the stop. It was the Kalinina station. It was dark outside the window. There was some small, almost abandoned station. Susan was afraid to get off here following her husband. But on the platform she saw clearly that her husband went to the girl, kissed her, and they walked together by the hand into the darkness. Susan, seeing this picture, cried. The train moved on. Where was she going now? She didn't know. She just sat and rode in silence. After half an hour, she came to her senses and realized she had to get off, so she got off at the nearest station. The station was quite large, but where to go, the woman did not know. So she called her daughter. "Emily, hi." Susan sobbed into the phone. "Mom, what's wrong? Where are you?" Emily tried to make sense of her words through the noise of the train and her mom's tears. "I don't know where I am," Susan continued to sob. "Mom, calm down. What is near you right now?" The daughter was trying to find out her mother's whereabouts. She didn't know she had traveled far away. "I went to the station to follow Jason. He said he was going to his mother's, but he got on a different train, so I got on the other train with him and followed him. He got off at some station called Kalinin, and there was a girl waiting for him." From these words, Susan again became very offended, and she sobbed again. "Mom, what is the name of your station?" Susan said the name of the station, which she read here on the sign. "Now find yourself some place to wait for us. As soon as I find out where you are, I'll come straight over." After talking to her mother, Emily rushed to open a map on her phone. Michael was beside her. He had the day off today. "Michael, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to drag you into our family problems, but I can't do it any other way. Mom needs help." At the same time, Emily searched for the name of the station where Susan was now. She found it quickly and found that it was about 120 kilometers from the city. "Yeah, that's a long way for Mom to go. But we have no choice but to go pick her up. She's very depressed," Emily said. Michael went with her. He was driving, which was good because she was very nervous. And there was no telling if she would be able to drive for that long. Emily and Michael had a bit of a mix-up. It took about 2 to get to the station. With it already dark outside, Susan waited for them inside the station. During this time, she had already had time to digest her situation and calm down a bit, but still her condition was unstable. "Mom, are you okay?" The first thing Emily asked, meeting her mother's eyes. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm sorry for making you drive almost at night to pick me up." Susan felt uncomfortable, especially in front of Michael. "It's okay, Susan. Things happen in life." Michael was sympathetic. After picking up the woman, they all walked together to the parking lot where their car was parked. The drive back was faster, as it always was. Emily drove her mom home and they stayed the night at her house. After Susan fell asleep, Emily didn't dare call her dad. It was too late. But she couldn't bear to watch her parents' family crumble literally before her eyes. Jason picked up the phone relatively quickly. "Dad?" "Hi," Emily said into the phone. "Oh, Emily, hi. Is something wrong that you're calling at this late hour?" "Yes, Dad, there is. Why don't you tell me what's going on between you and Mom?" "Daughter, let's you and I talk about everything when I come from Mom's." Father's voice was anxious. "Dad, can you not lie to me? I know you're not at Grandma's." The father on the other end of the line fell silent. "Daughter, let's talk about everything afterwards. I don't feel comfortable talking right now," and he hung up. Emily didn't realize that it was pointless to ask her father for details now. She just had to be patient and wait. But she didn't have much patience. In the morning, Emily was awakened by a phone call from an unknown number. "Hello," Emily said through her sleep. She always slept so sweetly at her parents' house. "Is this Emily?" The pleasant female voice on the other end of the line asked. "Yes, it's me." Emily jumped up on her bed. "I'm Amber, your father's mistress. We need to meet tomorrow night at Cafe Rebecca at 8 o'clock in the evening," the girl said very quickly. "Okay," was all Emily had time to reply. Amber quickly hung up the phone, apparently so her father wouldn't overhear the conversation. Emily didn't tell anyone about the call, not her mother, not Michael, not her father. She decided to go to the meeting first, and then act according to circumstances. Cafe Rebecca was located in the center of the city and was considered one of the most prestigious establishments. Emily had been there only once before, as a student, when she had gone there with her friends. This time Emily felt at ease already. She had money for this cafe. Last time, when she was still a student, going to this place took half of her scholarship. Once inside, she searched her eyes for this Amber. Emily didn't know what she looked like, but her dad's mistress had found her and waved her over. Emily cautiously made her way in her direction. "Emily, I'm going to have a short conversation with you. After all, you and I are not friends. I urge you to keep quiet about our conversation, otherwise it will be worse for you." Amber started the conversation. Emily carefully sat down in the soft chair. A waiter immediately came over to her. "I'll have a cedar latte, please," she said. One thing Emily remembered from her college days was that Rebecca's made very good coffee. The waiter nodded and walked toward the kitchen. "I have a favor to ask of you," Amber continued. "Get off my Michael, and I'll get off your father's back." Emily didn't understand anything. "What are you talking about? And what right do you have to tell me to leave Michael?" The girl was indignant. "I have every right," Amber shouted. "You're the reason Michael left me. He met you and left me." "What the hell are you talking about, Amber?" Emily still couldn't understand what kind of nonsense this girl sitting across from her was talking about. "Before Michael met you, he and I dated. He was in love with me, and then he met you, and he turned his attention to you and forgot all about me. But I didn't let that go. I found out about your family, and I got your father to fall in love with me. I had no trouble seducing him. Apparently, he was so caught up in his old family relationships that he jumped on me like a hungry dog on a bone. What did your mommy do to him?" Amber laughed. "Don't you dare say that about my mommy," Emily exclaimed. She hated to hear such words about her parents. "What's your dad like in bed?" Amber continued to play. "If you want your father back in the family, leave Michael alone," Amber said, and got up from the table. "Otherwise, I'll make him marry me, which will completely break your mother. And I'm not kidding. I'm no joke." After saying that, Amber walked out of the cafe. Emily was shocked. The waiter had long ago brought her the cedar latte she had ordered, but she couldn't bring herself to take even one sip of coffee. Finally, she took that sip. The coffee warmed her up so much. And she began to think about what she should do next, whether she should tell Michael or her father or her mother, or leave Michael for the sake of bringing her father back into the family. Would her parents be able to maintain a good relationship after all this? Emily was at a crossroads. She then decided to just talk to her father about what was going on between him and her mother. The next morning, after canceling an appointment at work, Emily arrived at her father's workplace. "Emily, what are you doing here so early in the morning? Why aren't you at work?" her father asked indignantly. He was uncomfortable that the whole mistress thing might come out. "Dad, I came here so you could tell me everything. I don't recognize Mom. She's completely exhausted. Tell me, who is this woman?" Emily went straight to talking about the mistress. "She's a flight attendant," Jason replied nervously. "But it's clear to me now," Emily said out loud, thinking she was speaking to herself. "What has become clear to you, Emily?" "I don't get it," her father was perplexed. Nothing. "Dad, how serious is your relationship with this Amber?" "Oh, you already know her name." "Good for you," Jason said ironically. "Stop being ironic, Dad. Our family is crumbling before our eyes. How serious is your relationship with this woman?" "Honestly, daughter, I had a crush on her, but I didn't think it would go this far. Admittedly, the initiative came from her. But of course she wouldn't have missed out on a man like you, wealthy, successful, athletic, and handsome. Dad, don't start talking about Mom. Have you seen the state she's in? Or are you only interested in your job and this Amber? Emily was ready to explode, but held back as best she could. I'm not ready to leave the family yet, her father admitted. You know, I have a lot in common with Susan. I can't leave it all behind like that. But I can't leave Amber either. This is when Emily couldn't take it anymore. Daddy, don't you realize she's just using you? The girl screamed. Emily, calm down. Her father tried to calm her down, but to no avail. Emily burst into hysterics and ran out of the study, slamming the door loudly. She didn't get to have a frank conversation with her father. Jason was alone. He paced back and forth in his large office with his hands behind his back. He realized that this affair had gone too far, and it wouldn't be easy for him to get out of it. But what should he do? Leave Susan and go to Amber, the woman who'd made him young again? Or live out his life with his wife? He didn't know the answers to those questions, but he realized that his relationship with his daughter Emily had soured. Emily ran out of her father's office, ran to her car in the parking lot, and tried to calm down in the car. She didn't manage to calm down right away. When she was able to drive, the girl decided to go to her mother's house and talk to her. Today was Susan's day off. She was a little surprised at her daughter's sudden appearance. Emily, why aren't you at work? Asked a confused Susan, who hadn't slept well the previous night. And what's wrong with your eyes? Have you been crying? Emily went straight to the kitchen. Susan, without further ado, put the kettle on. Mom, I saw her, Emily pronounced. Her who? Well, Dad's mistress. Her name is Amber, and she works as a stewardess. Susan was wary of the word mistress, but where had Emily been able to see her? She called me on her own. Emily began to tell her story, and got upset again, reliving it all over again. Mom, the thing is, this Amber stole Dad on purpose from Michael. Daughter, are you okay? What are you talking about? Susan didn't realize if her daughter was delusional or telling the truth. Mom, I'm perfectly fine, she told me herself. If I want my father back in the family, I have to leave Michael. Allegedly, Michael dumped her and left her for me. I don't get it. Susan shook her head, trying to put what she had heard in order. Amber doesn't like Jason at all. That's what I'm telling you right now. She'd gotten involved with him to get back at me. And Jason fell for it. But she's beautiful, young, well-groomed, and she's got a lot of nerve. She told me that I had to leave Michael, and then Jason would come back to you. Susan was silent. She finally got the full meaning of what she had said. I have a counter question. Do you think I'd want your father after all this? And how disgusting. Jason falling for some young girl, betraying me, betraying the kids. Emily, do you have to move on with Michael? You have to make your own destiny. And if you love Michael, then by no means sell your love. Don't leave him for this Amber. If Michael is with you now, then he loves you. Emily, hearing these words from Susan's mom, walked over to her and hugged her tightly. Mommy, but I feel so sorry for you. Can you survive such a betrayal? I can. For your sake, Anthony, I can do anything and survive it, Susan replied. The women were unable to continue the conversation further, as Emily's younger brother Anthony came in from practice. He was still a high school student, finishing 11th grade this year and preparing to go to university. Hi, little brother, Emily said the phrase in a deliberately cheerful voice. Anthony doesn't need to know anything. Hey sis, why aren't you at work? I'm working the second shift today. I just stopped by to see you and Mom. Emily and her mom decided to talk next time. Emily went to work. Michael. She decided not to say anything yet, but she wasn't planning on leaving him either. Amber called Emily 2 days later, though. So, Emily, are you going to leave Michael alone? Mistress, she's never been treated with ceremony. Remember, I will never leave Michael alone. And you stay away from my father after all. I won't. I'm going to make Jason leave your mother, and I'm going to leave her with nothing. You little bitch, Emily almost shouted into the phone. But you'll never get away with it, no matter how hard you try, and the girl herself hung up the receiver. Her hands were shaking from the vile words she had just heard. 2 days later, Jason didn't come home for the first time. Emily had been told about it by his mother. A week later, he told Susan he was leaving her for someone else. He couldn't hide it anymore. Susan, thank you for all the years you and I have been together. Thank you for the kids, for Emily and Anthony. They're wonderful. But I'm sorry I met someone else, Jason said. It was hard for him to say those words. He'd been thinking about them for a long time. But Amber had forced him to leave his family. She'd blackmailed him into losing her, and he'd grown attached to her and couldn't live a day without her. After saying that, Jason went up to his bedroom to pack his suitcase. He did so quickly, and on his way out he added, "I'll file for divorce myself." When he left, Susan let the tears fall. In her opinion, it was the end of her family, which she had so lovingly created all this time. But somehow life had to go on. Susan stood by Emily. Amber, learning that Emily wasn't going to leave Michael, freaked out and decided to act out to spite her. Daily, she told her lover Jason to leave the family. "Jason, when you leave that Susan of yours and come to me so we can have a full family. I'm going to have a baby for you," Amber told Jason. His mistress took him in her affection, and Jason gave in, plucked up his courage, and told Susan the truth. And Amber rejoiced. After Jason came to her for good, she'd pictured Emily. But the reaction of her powerlessness, her anger at her father for abandoning her mother. But it was Emily's own fault. Amber had warned her. Emily chose not to retaliate against Amber. Spent all her free time at her mom's, which is exactly what her loved ones wanted. Amber, not seeing the wounded response at all, decided to move on. She wanted Michael too, and she didn't need Jason. Michael was her target. So she needed to set up a meeting with Michael. Amber and Michael worked for the same airline. Michael was a co-pilot at first and flew in the allotted hours and proved himself to his superiors in an extremely positive way. He became an aircraft commander. Amber worked for the airline as a flight attendant. She liked Michael immediately. In general, Amber had a love for pilots since childhood. She could not explain it in any way. But she read novels in her youth. For some reason, she imagined her soulmate was a pilot and no one else. When she saw Michael, she realized she was lost. She flirted with him for a long time, trying to draw attention to herself. Michael, who had no girlfriend at the time, fell for her advances and seductions. But he did not feel anything serious about her, and told her repeatedly. But Amber, at that moment, everything was fine. After all, Michael was with her, and it was the most important thing for her. And then Michael met Emily and disappeared. He left Amber, and he was honest with her about everything. She was furious, and she couldn't accept it. She couldn't accept that Michael had traded her for someone else. She didn't immediately follow Michael's new girlfriend. In principle, it wasn't hard to do. Emily had come to the airport a few times to pick Michael up after work. Then she found out all about Emily, her family, tracked down her father, and arranged a chance meeting in the parking lot. Amber went back to her big job to get Michael back, but he never came back to her. And one day, while leaving the airport with Michael, Amber struck up a conversation with him. "Michael, hey." Amber caught up with him. "How are you doing?" "Hey, yeah, I'm good." "Michael, I wanted to tell you that I'm not mad at you anymore," Amber said with a sly tone. "I finally met my love, too." "Yeah, I'm really happy for you. I really am." "I hope he's a good man?" Michael asked. "Yes, he is. And you know him?" "I know him. You intrigue me. Who is he? Tell me. That's a mystery. Michael, why don't we go to the coffee shop tonight? Or do you want to come over for a cup of tea, just for old time's sake? Amber needed to lure him into her web. She had a plan in her head. Michael gave it some thought and agreed. Shall we? I'm not in any hurry right now. Emily's on shift till tonight. Oh, great, to our favorite coffee shop like we used to. Aha. And Michael and Amber wrapped up at a diner near the airport. Have you had breakfast, Michael? No, I haven't. So I'm going to get some cereal with peanuts and tea. That's right. I do, Amber admitted to him, and ordered all the things she had listed. He ordered himself scrambled eggs and sausage and an espresso. Amber needed to lure Michael to her house at all costs. To do so, she opted for a sleeping pill in her purse, which she needed to discreetly slip into his drink. She had no trouble doing so. When Michael went to the bathroom, she calmly took and added the medicine to his coffee. Only she made a small dosage, so that he did not pass out right here in the cafe. Unsuspecting, Michael calmly ate his scrambled eggs, began to drink. After taking a couple of sips, he felt weak and drowsy. I guess I'm so tired from the flight today that I'm really sleepy, Michael said, closing his eyes as he walked. Amber realized that now was the time to take action. Michael, why don't we go to my place? You can take a nap at my place, because it's a long drive home. He couldn't resist, so he agreed. Happy Amber took him under her arm and quickly led him to her car. As they drove, Michael fell asleep. She had to work hard to wake him up when they arrived and could barely get him up to her. When she got Michael into her apartment, Amber took him into the bedroom, took off his shirt, and covered him with a blanket. Then she undressed herself and lay down next to him. Amber did all of this so that she could take pictures of them lying in bed together and doing well. Those pictures were safely taken. There was no Photoshop needed. Everything looked so realistic that even a simpleton would believe it. After that, Amber got out of bed, changed into her house clothes, and lay down on the couch. Jason was on a business trip. There was no need to fear that he would suddenly come home. Michael woke up 4 hours later. He couldn't realize anything at first. Where am I? He whirled his head around, trying to figure it out. Honey, I've got you, Amber said affectionately as she ran in at the sound of his voice. You and I had such a good time. Michael couldn't understand a thing. What time? My head hurt like I'd been drinking nonstop for a week. I thought we were at a coffee shop. How did I get here? You invited me to your place. So I went. I love you. Amber hugged him. Michael pulled her arms off his shoulders. Don't, Amber. I don't believe there could be anything between us. You don't believe it, but look. The girl showed him the pictures she had taken. You set this whole thing up on purpose. You lured me to the cafe to slip me something. Michael couldn't believe the veracity of the pictures Amber was showing him. Michael, it was your initiative, and I just went along with it, Amber replied. Don't you ever send those pictures. Ashley, do you understand me? Do you? Are you threatening me? No, not yet. I'm just warning you. Michael barely got out of bed and walked out of the apartment. Amber was rubbing her hands together because she'd done it. Michael went first to the airport to pick up his car because he'd left work in a hired car. Then he was in a hurry to get back before Ashley got home from work. He broke all the rules, but he made it to the apartment where they'd been living together for months. He got there a half hour before she got back, changed quickly, and showered. All those half hours he wondered if he had something with Amber or if she'd cheated on him. Hi, Ashley greeted cheerfully when he got home from work. "Hi, Ashley." Michael came out to greet her, gave her a kiss and a hug. "I missed you so much." "I missed you too. How's your mom?" Michael suddenly asked her. "Not good," Ashley said sadly. "She can't get over it, and I don't know what to do." "Ash, it's going to take time. Unfortunately, nothing else will help. I'm sure Susan will come through this ordeal with flying colors. We just have to wait a little longer." "I certainly hope so," Ashley replied. "She's spending a lot of time with Anthony. He's finishing 11th grade and getting ready for college. Her father hasn't called or written since he met Amber, and it's like he's lost his mind. As they say, a gray hair in his beard, a black eye in his rib." "What are your plans for tonight, my love?" Ashley asked playfully. "I just want to lie in front of the TV with my favorite girl," Michael replied. "I don't mind." Michael and Ashley spent the day together as they had planned. One day, Ashley went to her father's office to pick up his papers. Her mother had asked her to do so. Susan didn't want to see her husband again, so she asked her to go to Ashley's father's office. Ashley stopped by after work, and he wasn't there alone. Emily was sitting in her father's office. This meeting hadn't gone too badly, even though it had been unpleasant. "What can you do?" "Dad, Mom asked me to pick up my papers," Emily started the conversation. "Give them to me and I'll go. They're in the locker room now in my briefcase." Jason went to the locker room, and Emily was alone with Amber in the office. She restrained herself from saying anything hurtful to Amber, but she wasn't holding back. "How did you like Michael in bed?" Amber asked ironically. "What's it to you?" Emily snapped at him. "Or does my father not suit you at all?" "No, I'm fine with him, but I like Michael better." "Stop it, Amber." Emily yelled at her. "By the way, Michael and I had a lot of fun recently," she said, as if she didn't mean it. "A couple days ago, Michael came over for a couple hours." "Didn't he tell you that?" "Oh, that's too bad. I thought you two had a very trusting relationship." "I don't believe you," Emily replied sharply. "And I have proof." Amber pulled out her phone to show Emily the pictures from earlier. "Well, I think we look great in bed together. Don't you think?" Emily flipped through the pictures, unable to take her eyes off them. While she was looking at them, her father came back with the papers. "Here you go," he said. Emily took the documents with trembling hands and left the office without saying anything. "What's wrong with her?" Dad asked Amber. "I don't know," she said. "I don't really care about your daughter, to be honest." Emily walked on, tears dripping from her eyes. She couldn't believe that her beloved Michael, her sweetheart, was cheating on her. The girl got into her car, let the tears flow, and then drove home. She needed to find out all the things that Michael was hiding from her. When she arrived, Michael was home. "Hi, sweetheart," he said. But Emily didn't say anything, just looked up at him with her big, blue, crying eyes. "Is something wrong?" "Something with Mom?" Michael asked her. "No, Mom's fine. But our relationship is over," Emily replied. "What are you talking about?" "Anne, I don't know what you're talking about." "I'm saying you can go back to your Amber. You and I are no longer on the same path. How could you go out with me and get in bed with her?" After saying that, Michael realized what he was talking about. Amber showed her the pictures she'd taken when he'd suddenly fallen asleep. "I'll explain everything to you right now," he tried to justify himself. "I don't want to hear any of your explanations. I've got it all figured out," Emily said harshly, though it hurt her to say such words to the man she loved. "Now please take your things and go live at your place." Michael realized that Emily was very upset with him. He himself would have been offended too, So without further ado, he gathered the necessary things and left the apartment. Emily was left alone. She cried all evening, sitting on the couch and remembering their relationship with Michael, how it had started, how much romance there had been in the beginning, how she had fallen in love with him as a freshman girl, how she had waited for him from flights. She remembered and cried even harder from the hopelessness that nothing could be taken back. In the evening, her mom came to visit her. Susan's visit was planned. She wanted to pick up the documents Emily had traveled to her father's office to get. Susan saw Emily crying. "What's wrong, daughter?" she asked. Now Susan had to comfort her daughter. "Mom, it's Amber. Imagine today when I went to my father's house, she showed me pictures of her and Michael in bed. It was a few days ago," Emily said, sobbing. She felt sorry for herself. "Are you sure it's not a montage?" Susan asked. "Just knowing Michael and his attitude toward you, I can't believe it. What did Michael say to that?" "And I did not listen to him," said the daughter. "The picture was enough for me. But you can't do that. You always have to hear two points of view. This Amber's interest is clear to me. She wants Michael back any way she can. She even went through Jason, but she realized she didn't get her ex back. She's angry, and she's being mean." "Mom, not making excuses for him," her daughter continued. "I'm not making excuses. That Amber is an asshole, and she needs to be dealt with in her own way," Susan said firmly. She was belligerent. "I realize now that Jason is just a fling for her. And I've been asking myself for days, why didn't I fight for my husband? And Emily, maybe you should have given that girl a big send-off." "Mom, is that you?" Emily didn't recognize her usually quiet and calm mother. "How do you want to fight for Dad?" "I don't know yet. It's Anthony's birthday, so we need to get the whole family around the family table soon. Can you help me? And we'll invite my dad too, of course. Without Amber, of course. And we'll reminisce about all the good times we used to have together." "Mom, I don't know what it'll look like, but I'll help," Emily nodded. Her resentment toward Michael had been put on the back burner for now. Emily spent all her free time preparing for her brother's birthday. Anthony was turning 18. He decided to celebrate his holiday twice, with friends in a cafe and with relatives at home. A couple days before the party, Anthony called his father. "Dad, hi. I hope you didn't forget. It's my birthday." "No, of course not, son. How could I forget?" Jason replied sincerely. He had a wonderful relationship with his son. He didn't want to lose that relationship to a new love. "Dad, we're going out with the family. I'll see you at home on June 25th. Will you come?" Jason paused for a moment, which made Anthony want to get upset, and then he said, "I will, Anthony, thank you. I just hope you'll come without her. You know, Mom, Emily, the in-laws, no one will be happy to see her." I'm not such a fool, his son realized. And Jason did keep his word and came to the party on time and without his Amber. Susan met her husband as if there had never been any marital discord in their relationship. She was affectionate, friendly with him. It was a family celebration that everyone enjoyed, and the birthday boy himself was happy, and a full family, and gifts that made him relatives. After the feast was nearing completion, Anthony with a glass suddenly rose from the table. "My relatives, I want to say a big thank you to all of you. Thank you for what I have. To you, Dad, I say a special thank you for coming, and we are together with you now as before." Anthony's words touched both his father, mother, and Emily deeply. Even tears rolled out of their eyes and fell into the glasses with sparkling wine. "Emily, where is Michael?" the father asked his daughter. He didn't know they were in a fight and Michael was on a flight. She had lied to him. She didn't feel like telling her father the whole story right now at the party. The family and friends slowly began to disperse. But Jason, after drinking a little wine with Susan's brother, didn't want to leave. "Dad, why don't you stay home tonight?" suggested Emily, who wanted to annoy Amber. Dad didn't refuse the offer. He was glad he did, because he would have been too embarrassed to ask to stay over. He and Vitaly sat outside that night. Jason went to his and Susan's bedroom, as was his habit, and only when he lay down did he realize that he had done something wrong. But Susan didn't kick him out, but decided to use her mistress's methods. As soon as Jason fell asleep, Susan took a picture of them together. All night Jason's phone was ringing off the hook with missed calls, but Susan turned down the sound on her phone and fell asleep peacefully. She was furious that Jason wasn't answering her. She knew exactly where her lover had gone and was very worried about missing Michael. She couldn't let Jason go now, or she'd be left with nothing. And she didn't want that. She called all night, then all morning. Jason woke up around 0800 and grabbed his phone and saw about 30 missed calls from Amber. He immediately called her back. "So where were you all night?" "My son's birthday party ran late," Jason said. Amber answered with a look of displeasure. "I fell asleep on the couch in the living room," Jason lied. "I'll come over and explain everything." Jason hadn't even had breakfast, leaving his former home. Susan had sent the pictures from the night before to Amber through Emily right after her husband left. Amber got those pictures and was just furious. As soon as Jason walked in, she gave him a huge scandal. He didn't confront her. He had a headache. He drank a cup of coffee with a hangover and drove to work. He didn't have the energy for a fight. He wasn't sure if he wanted to spend the rest of his life with Amber. Meanwhile, Emily's mom insisted that Emily have a serious talk with Michael. "You're the master of your own destiny," Susan told Emily. "And if you want to live the rest of your life with him, talk to him. Tell him the truth about Amber. Tell him that she is now your father. Michael, on the other hand, is still in the dark about who Jason and the mistress are. We need to untangle this snake pit. And who's going to do it if not you and me?" Over breakfast, they began to spend many a night at my parents' house. "Michael calls you," Susan said. "Yes, every day. But I don't answer the phone. I think he betrayed me. What if Amber set this whole thing up on purpose to break you two up? You have to meet him." Emily thought about her mom's suggestion for a long time. On the one hand, she really wanted to meet Michael. She missed him so much. But on the other hand, she immediately remembered those nasty pictures, and she didn't want anything else. But the meeting presented itself. Michael was waiting for Emily at her work. "We need to talk to you right away," he said. "This can't go on much longer. I have to explain everything to you." Without speaking, he took Emily's hand and led her to his car. She didn't resist. In her subconscious, she was looking forward to this meeting. "I owe you an explanation about these pictures," Michael began. "Yes, they were taken at her house. But I honestly don't remember when. One thing I do remember is that Amber and I were leaving work after a hard shift. She invited me to a coffee shop near work. Since you were working through the evening, I agreed to sit for an hour and have breakfast. And after I drank the tea, it was all a blur. I don't remember how I got into her car. I don't remember how I ended up in bed at her place. You may not believe me, but I remember everything very, very vaguely. It was like something had been put in my drink." "I believe you," Emily replied. "I believe that she's capable of it, because she's been trying to break us up for so long. And your biggest mistake right now is that you didn't tell her that Amber is your ex-girlfriend, and she wants you back so badly." Michael, hearing those words, turned sharply toward Emily. "How do you know that?" "Amber told me. You know that Amber and Daddy's mistress are the same person." He couldn't hide his surprise. "But how? So your dad is dating my ex-girlfriend?" "Yeah, that's right. But that's not all, Michael. Your ex-girlfriend Amber specifically started dating my dad Jason to get back at me. I went out with her, and she told me in no uncertain terms to dump you so she'd leave my dad alone. But I didn't, as you can see, because I love you. And that really pissed her off. So she decided to set me up with pictures of you. But that doesn't mean that nothing happened between you two. I mean, it doesn't, Emily said. Michael, I swear to you that nothing happened between me and Amber. At least not while I was in my memory. Yes, I do, Emily said affectionately. But why didn't you tell me earlier that you knew all about Amber? I didn't want to involve you in the family squabbles, she said. Does your father know about Amber? Did she go out with him on purpose? No, no one's told him that yet. I want to tell him, but I just need him to hear it from Amber. He might not believe me. Then we'll build on that, Michael suggested. Let's get Amber out in the open. How do we do that? Emily asked again. You need to meet with her again, but record the entire conversation. I'll call her now and make an appointment, Michael suggested. Emily nodded. There was one number in her phone book. She found it, called it. It rang. Hello, Amber answered. Amber, this is Emily, Michael's current girlfriend. Remember when we met you at the coffee shop? Yeah, of course I remember. I'm going to be your stepmom soon. Amber said into the phone. Amber, if your offer to dump Michael still stands, I'm in. But we need to meet again and talk things through. I need assurances, Emily said into the phone. I'll never give up on Michael, so it's on. Do you want to meet? Well, let's do it tonight at 8 p.m. at the same place, Amber suggested. Okay, Emily replied. Well, that's half done, Michael said as Emily hung up the phone after talking to Amber. Yeah, but I'm so scared to do all this, like I'm going to betray you tonight, she added. Don't be afraid of anything, Emily, I'll always be there for you. Trust me, Michael said and leaned in to kiss her. Emily did not resist for the first time in a long time. After that conversation, they drove to the apartment where they had lived together before their fight. Emily began to get ready to talk, as it was already 4 o'clock. I could take you to a coffee shop, Michael offered, but she declined. Emily was afraid that Amber would notice him and not believe that the whole situation was real. Finally, evening came, and Emily drove to Boston in her car. It wasn't a long drive, so she got there in 15 minutes. Amber was already sitting at a table in the cafe in all her war paint. You've had enough of Michael, haven't you? Amber asked. No, I love Michael, but I'm sorry about Mom. She's very depressed. She doesn't go out, she doesn't eat, she lied. I really hope that Daddy will come back to the family and everything will get better. Mom will revive at least a little. But I need to know that if I leave Michael, you'll leave Dad alone. Yeah, I promise you that. You leave my Michael and I'll leave your father. I don't love him. I don't love him. I only needed him to accomplish my goal, Amber said loudly. Emily had time to turn on the recorder on her phone and write it all down. Okay, Emily replied. I believe you, Michael is yours. With those words, Emily got up from the table without ordering anything. Everything she wanted to get, she had already gotten. She drove home and told Michael everything. Amber believed it. You have to play your part now, Emily said. She and Michael agreed that he was in the play and would play the role of the jilted and hurt boyfriend. They wanted to get Amber to dump her wounded father. Amber found out about Emily dumping Michael 2 days later. She caught up with him when they got off work together again. Michael, is it true? Did you and Emily break up? Yes, I did, he answered her. So now I have a chance again? Amber asked ambiguously. But everyone always has a chance, he answered ambiguously and walked on. Amber took his answer as a call to action and acted on it. She needed to tell Jason that they were breaking up. But first she needed to make sure Michael was in her good graces. Amber didn't want to be alone. One night, Amber called Michael, and he was at Emily's at the time, but Michael answered the phone. "Hey, why don't you and I get together? I've missed you." He paused for a moment, then agreed. "All right, let's go to a coffee shop near your house." Emily didn't like hearing that, but Michael reassured her. "Emily, honey, but just be patient. As soon as we get Amber out in the open, we'll get you married. We have to get your father out of that stewardess clutches." Michael began packing for his meeting with Amber. Emily let him go with a heavy heart. What kind of girl would send her favorite guy to meet her ex-girlfriend? And a very attractive one at that. Michael arrived at the cafe. Amber arrived about 5 minutes after him, walked up to him and gave him a hug and a kiss on the cheek. "Michael, I missed you so much." The test was a given, Amber said. "And I missed you a little too," Michael added a little later. "I was told you grieved after me. And not for long. Did you find a new boyfriend quickly?" She faltered, but she had to answer something. "Yeah, it was just a fling. I thought I told you about him. An older man just bored with his boring family life, got attracted to me. I'm bored with him. We have very different interests." "Interested in you, or did you seduce him?" Michael clarified. "Michael, but let's not get into that. I'm way past that stage of my life. I'm going to tell him today that it's over between us, even though he's so attracted to me. But I want you and only you, and I'll talk about it 1,000 times. But I can't promise you anything serious. I've just been dumped, and I'm disappointed in every woman in the world right now. Trust me, I can prove to you that not all women are assholes. There are some decent ones. We'll see about that. First, you need to break up with your current boyfriend." "I'll do it tonight," Amber replied. Michael and Amber sat in the cafe for about an hour and a half talking about nothing. Michael was once again convinced that Amber wasn't right for him. She was too empty for him. Amber told Jason some unpleasant news that evening. "Jason, we have to break up," she began the conversation. The man had had a busy day today. He hadn't eaten most of the day. He hadn't waited for dinner from Amber either. "Amber, what the hell are you talking about?" he said. "I'm tired as a dog today. I'm hungry, but there's nothing at home. You were home all day yesterday. Why didn't you at least boil some borscht? And now you're telling me you're breaking up with me." "Jason, I'm not kidding. I want to break up with you." "I mean it," Amber added. "What's the reason?" the man asked sternly. "I don't love you. I don't feel like you're my man. So I'm asking you to get out of my apartment today and tomorrow." Jason, these words really hurt him. Had he, at almost 50, lived to be dumped by a young girl? "Didn't I give you enough money?" he asked. "It's fine," Amber replied. "But you're not my man. I'm sorry, I don't want to get into this anymore. I'm tired." Amber left the bedroom where the conversation was taking place. Jason immediately packed his suitcase and left the apartment. He had nowhere to go back to. He wasn't going straight to Susan's house. So he drove back to the hotel, frustrated and angry not so much at Amber as at himself for being such a fool. He'd thought she was the girl he was going to spend the rest of his life with. How had he been wrong? Naive. As soon as Jason left, Amber silently called Michael. "Michael, I want you to know that I broke up with my Jason. He just moved out of my apartment. You can come over." Amber was pleased. She couldn't believe that her plan had finally worked and that she and Michael would be reunited very soon. But how wrong she was. Michael told Amber that he couldn't come to her place today because his mom was sick and he needed to be there for her. Amber believed him, saying she was expecting him any time. And Michael, of course, was at Emily's the whole time. He's the one who told her what Amber said about breaking up with her dad. I wonder where he went now. Probably to a hotel. Because he has nowhere else to go, Emily said. Emily, listen. What if I called my dad and asked him to come over to my mom's house and tell him that we wanted to have dinner at my mom's house? What do you think? Michael suggested. That's not a bad idea. Call him. Michael agreed, and Emily immediately dialed her father. Dad, hey, what are you doing right now? Do you have time right now? Why don't you come over to Mom's? We're planning on going over there too. We're going to sit around and drink tea from the samovar. Emily, would it be okay for me to go to her house uninvited? I was mean to her, leaving her, Jason said. Dad, but Anthony and I are calling you, and I think she'll understand that we wanted to talk to Dad. All right, I'll be there in an hour, Jason replied. He had nothing to do at the hotel, so he agreed to spend time with the kids. Emily had time to tell her mother, and she and Michael went to Susan's house. Jason didn't lie, he came. It was awkward for him, but he managed with his agility, and they all sat down to drink tea from the samovar and play bingo. And after a while, Emily called Daddy to talk to her. Dad, I've got a rather complicated conversation to have with you about your Amber. I broke up with her today. She kicked me out of her apartment, said she didn't love me, Jason replied. I know how. I didn't turn on the recording on my phone. Yeah, I promise you. You leave my Michael, and I'm leaving your father. I don't love him. I only needed him to accomplish my goal, Amber said on the recording. Dad, Amber didn't love you at all. She only seduced you to get Michael away from me. She'd dated him before, but Michael dumped her when he met me. And I just found out all of this recently. You fell for her and hurt your mom, Emily said. Jason didn't say anything, but he didn't have much to say. In his defense, Michael had faked our breakup and told her that he was ready to go out with her again. She dumped you that same day, Dad. She's nothing, Emily finished and left the room. Jason remained standing alone in the room in silence. The next day evening, Emily walked Michael to work outside the airport. They met up with Amber. Emily purposely hugged Michael, kissing him. He reciprocated by kissing her too. Amber walked by them just then, and Emily had time to say, "You're too excited, sweetheart. You'll never see my Michael. He's mine and mine alone. You're a liar, Michael." Only now she realized that she had been tricked. You're not all about screwing around with men. You stole my father away from my family, so you're left with nothing, Emily added. She was glad that Amber was finally getting what she deserved. And she deserved to be left alone. Michael and Emily got married a few months later and went on their honeymoon in Los Angeles. Emily had long dreamed of visiting that city. After the honeymoon, they sold their 2 apartments and bought a large 2-story house. And a year later, they had a son who was named James. Emily was on maternity leave, and Michael continued to work as an airplane captain. Susan, mother-in-law, not immediately, but accepted her daughter-in-law into her family because she had no choice. Emily healed Susan's knee, for which she was also very grateful. It took Susan a while, but she forgave Jason, who had apologized to her 1,000 times and asked for permission to return to their family nest. Susan accepted him back and tried not to remember everything that had happened between him and his mistress Amber. In fact, Amber's name was avoided in this family. Too much emotion had been stirred up by it so far. Anthony, Emily's younger brother, graduated from high school and entered the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Amber quit her job at the airline where she and Michael worked together and left town for good. Their mutual acquaintances talked about Amber meeting her love and getting married too. But most importantly, she no longer bothered Emily, Michael, or Jason and Susan with her presence.